Hello and welcome to the Notorious Scoundrels. I am Evan Paul. That's Mike Berry over there. That's a Will
Woo!
Pagani. That's Will Shick. Welcome back. How you doing?
We're doing really good. How are you guys doing?
Good. It's sunny over here in the Northwest. I mean, you guys know
It
that.
is. Well,
And
I mean, the Northwest is a pretty big area. It could be sunny in one place and like
yeah,
raining in the
sorry,
other.
it's sunny in the
But
Seattle area, which is a little bit different than usual.
you guys are you and Pagani are definitely closer than I am because I'm across the water. So I
Okay,
live
yeah, that's
I
right.
live on the peninsula. So there's definitely
Yeah.
more of it. It could be snowing at my house, and that would make perfect weather sense here.
Hey, as long as it's
So
not hurricaning this time, I
that's
think
true.
I think we're
We
kosher, right?
it if power goes out, it's probably suspicious this time, just based on the current weather
Yeah,
conditions.
that's right. Yeah, exactly. The all those conspiracy theorists here talking about a convenient power outage. They
Yeah,
have something going for
exactly.
them this time. Well, welcome back. We really, really appreciate having you guys back.
Yeah, thanks for having
In
us.
in this wild time of being in the post update era, and by era I mean 24 hours, pretty literally. Um, but we I do first want to give a shout out to a new patron. We have a new patron. You guys might have heard of him. His name is Isaiah Wallace. Uh, you might know him. He actually lives in AMG's hometown. He's the new world champion.
Hmm.
That
And
still
he's
have conspiracy theories about.
yeah.
Well, that's
So that's
fair. I
question
mean,
number one. What did you
let me
tell him?
add to those theories by saying we had a great time chatting to him because we were on the same plane flight. So,
As was I, but I didn't get to chat.
yeah.
I was
No,
up
you were
there
you were in the
in
cool
the
section. You were way at the
nosebleeds.
front of the plane. We were in the back.
Yeah, they sat like
It's school
literally
bus
directly in
rules,
front of us.
Evan. The cool kids sit in the back and have all the good conversations about game development and design.
That
And
is
all the
that is
toilets.
accurate. I was telling people on the Discord during that flight, it's like, hey, if you guys like Legion, probably put out some good thoughts for the future of this flight because it's not going to go too well if this one goes down.
We were all on that plane, so it would have been an interesting time for sure.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, people would be really sad that the fifth trooper would be in trouble, and maybe some other stuff too. But anyway,
Good luck,
uh,
Mike.
thank you again for being back. I think we're just gonna dive right into it. I do want to give a shout out also to folks that are listening to this who aren't aware. There are three other interviews that you guys have done or are doing. Is you've already done a Gray Squadron Gaming interview, which was lovely. And then I think later today you're talking with Winter Moon, and
Mhm.
tomorrow Dice Hate.
Today, actually, we have
Today.
we have three today. We have
Oh man,
we
you
have
guys
you
are
guys, Dice
busy,
Hate, and Winter Moon. So
busy
wanted
boys.
to strike while the iron was flaming hot.
We're actually even trying to we're coordinating our material
Nice.
to just like make sure that we're just gonna get everything that we can out of you dudes. So I
It's
guess
fair. That's what we're here for. So
yeah,
you
and
know,
and again we appreciate it because I think most devs out there wouldn't quite do this. But yeah, we will dive into it by talking about the Galactic Empire, as you might have guessed. So, Mike, if you have a visual, you could pull up. This is our one visual, I promise, for those who are listening to the cast. But I'll sort of narrate it a little bit. So, we're displaying a couple tables that are taken directly from Longshank's tournament data. Uh, these tournaments on the top table, um, they're labeled as that these are the pre-November 2024 update. It's about 5,500 games. And this is when we know that 501 was just like rolling over everybody like an angry
Mhm.
steamroller. And if you were playing Empire then, things were rough because guess what? There were a bunch of piercing snipers that had infinite aims that were just killing all your guys before you even got to start playing the game. And so thankfully, y'all made a change to equalize the Republic. And present company accepted, so to speak, with regards to our newest patron, Isaiah. Uh, it's fair to say that with that world champion obviously being an exemplary example, Republic has equalized. They're at 48% total win percentage in that below table. post November 2024 update, which seems to me like it was effective in sort of achieving that equilibrium. The Empire, though, is still hanging out there at the bottom at 44%. And this is this data is all pre-Adepticon. So cut it short mid-March. Obviously, Adepticon itself, there was there were some high performers, but on average, relatively low performance again from Empire. But that was to Mike and I think that was more icing on the cake in terms of sort of evidence that Empire is really not doing well and that they need some help. So the place where we are after the update is that Empire is now down 3 units, one of which is about to be replaced by Customizable. It does not have access to aggressive tactics. It no longer has access to any form of Guardian. There have been a couple of command card nerfs. And then on the flip side of that, we do have a brand new Callus, very shiny new Callus that I think is very efficient, very cool. I think he's going to be a lot of fun. So he's definitely a boost. And then there's some other things. Iden got like a buff in her unit card, a little nerf in her command card. Veers has one improved command. There's, I think, maybe a couple other little things. But I would pose to you that Empire players feel a little bit like Dr. Manhattan sitting on Mars, saying that the next rules update will be when Empire gets better. And I guess I'm just putting that out there to see what would you say to that player?
Well, I mean, first I would say that the feelings are completely valid, right? Like there's no one, and hopefully this came across in the stream yesterday when we were talking about what is on the watch list and stuff. No one is telling people what they're seeing is not real, right? Like we all agree that Empire has not risen like we expected. But I think the you have to, in some ways, right? You have to take the passion and the immediate experience of now and look at things from a longer term holistic perspective, right? And so to say that you look at your timetable, right? All of that info is largely within a 6-ish month period, maybe 7, because you start with July, right? But we started at Mini Strav in July. That was pretty late, so people really didn't start playing until August.
Right.
How many events have been played since then? Then there's the November update. The November update, as you pointed out, one of the things that we immediately identified was that clones were just suppressing everything, right? It wasn't just red save armies, it was rebels too. Rebels were struggling a bit against that build. Like separatists were, right? They were just killing everything because they were just over efficient.
Yeah.
So we took an immediate measure in November to adjust those points based on a limited set of data. And we did that because the evidence was quite overwhelming and it was clear that it was an unhealthy state for the game. So we came in with a limited scope, right? We did our best to quickly identify the things that we felt were outliers. We adjusted things fairly conservatively, although maybe the clone commandos was aggressive, right? Anytime you do something over 10%, that is a lot, right?
Still ended up on the world's winning list somehow.
And yet they've still performed, right? So even with those aggressive changes, obviously, like we were pretty close to the mark with very little time to do that, because all of that, and that's an emergency update, right? All of that effectively took place within about a month. So there wasn't a lot of time to test like we would want for something like that. It was a lot of it was very reactionary, and it was very we believe that we've identified these problems. We think that taking the risk on something that is, let's call it half baked, somebody can clip that and then use it against us every time. But from a true dev standpoint, right? We were rolling dice. We were saying, are we going to hit on this or are we going to miss? And what are the impacts going to be longer term?
Yeah.
Right. So you don't want to do that very often. If you want a game to have good longevity and you want it to be stable and you want players to be confident in the gameplay and stuff. Now, what we've learned since then, right, is that those changes did elevate rebels and separatists. They brought Galactic Republic a bit more in line, right? Because you can see it on the chart. and it didn't have an outstanding impact on Empire. So clearly there are additional struggles that the Empire faction is having post the rebalance that we are now working to identify. And we have the data and enough kind of like feedback, right? We've seen enough games. We've really dove into things. We've seen how certain adjustments have affected things. Because as we talked about, I think last time, right? Every adjustment has ripple effects to everything else. And so now, post Adepticon, having seen how that big event with all these top tier players coming in to play in one of the most competitive events that happens over the course of the year, one assumes, because the world's title is a big thing. Not to disparage any meta out there, I'm sure that there are great players in a lot of different metas, but we're just making assumptions.
Yeah.
On the event itself, which I think the community does as well. Now it's very clear, right? Even during the events, as we watched it go from the heats to the final cut, like on Saturday, I guess not the final cut, but the world starting and then the final cut on Sunday. At Saturday night, we were looking at those results and starting to talk as a team about, okay, clearly there are some struggles here and we haven't gotten the fix. So what can those fixes be? What are the primary core issues that we see repeated over and over and over again? Even if to play the game, right? Even if on that day, on Saturday night, we identified all the things we were going to change and we said, let's just change them.
Yeah.
The licensing process to get things approved is over a month. So
does that include points adjustments only?
I mean, it includes anything, any change we made, right? Like
okay.
if we're going to do something for any of the games, right?
Yeah.
The licensing process from us to licensing at Asmodee to the licensors to them back, assuming that there are no changes, right? That there's no debate or discussion that has to happen about whatever the document is. And typically rules documents are very quick, right? We don't typically get caught up in like, well, why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? They're pretty trustworthy. They're pretty trusting of us to manage the game rules. So assuming like a completely smooth system, the normal process takes over a month, right?
Yeah.
It's between 4 and 6 weeks. So,
and just to sneak in for a minute, right? That doesn't necessarily take into account like graphic design and
correct. I'm saying like literally we have everything ready to go in the way we want to post it Saturday night at Adepticon. And we send those final files, which have somehow been laid out because we got our graphic designers to work on it then and all this stuff, right?
Overtime.
Like,
yeah.
So we're living in a pretty wild, land where this has all happened. And we've made our confident guesses on what to do and all this stuff. And we send it off. April 15th is outside of the window for our partners at LFL to have reviewed and approved those documents. So the earliest that anything could have happened, assuming that we had fixes and everything in place and we had decided all this stuff in final files, post Adepticon is May, right? Like sometime in May, you might have that done. That obviously assumes that we did zero testing on any of the changes. We did zero discussion with the playtesters. Like even outside of playtest, oftentimes we'll go to the playtesters and say, here's a fix or an idea, or here's the points adjustments we're looking at, discuss. And we'll take that feedback as well.
Yeah.
Because you don't have to test everything, right? If you're adjusting something by less than 10% in points, you can usually talk that out and be pretty safe. But we would have foregone all of that. And even still, we wouldn't have documents approved by yesterday. So I think hopefully that kind of like helps people understand that there's the immediate response and then there's the time it takes just to do things. And that's both doing things as fast as possible and doing things with some consideration and testing and all the things that I think we all want, or at least it seems like the community wants, based on discussions and statements that are made over and over again, concerning anything that comes to the game, right? And I have yet to see the person claim that they would prefer things not be tested than be thoroughly tested. I'm sure that person's out there somewhere, and they're going to prove me wrong because that always happens.
Do we
But
play
as a
contrarians?
general rule, right, what we normally see is, you know, they want everyone wants things to be more tested and more vetted and more like final in their form than to have something come out that is not completely finalized and that we all know will change because it breaks all these things, but it's just a change for change sakes. Um, so yes, like absolutely, Empire, and like we said yesterday, we have our ideas. Currently we're working on them. Um, the next the next scheduled update is in November.
Mm-hmm.
That's in 6 months. Is there a world in which an update happens that's not on the schedule? Yes. Is that likely? Should people plan for it? No, right?
Yeah.
The entire idea that we've talked about with these twice a year updates, right, is that it provides a vehicle for players to say, okay, if changes are going to happen, this is when they'll happen. So there is some consistency and understanding that, if you're a TO or you're running an event or whatever, that's kind of a marker to watch, right? And then everybody can pay attention then and know that these new documents are going to come out. And then two, it provides ideally, right? The goal is that it provides transparency that says the timelines that we've explained as much as we can in terms of how long these things take. You now at least know that we hear you, we're with you, we understand where the problems are, and we can tell you, yes, we see it, we're analyzing it, or we're working on it, or we found the solution and here they are, like here are the changes for this time. That's the goal, right? But the process doesn't work, or it won't work if every time those dates come and we say we don't have changes yet, or we're not ready to make these, we have these things on the watch, and then everyone goes back to assuming, well, we have to wait forever to get something fixed. It's one of those things where, like, I understand, yes, we all understand and want the game to be better now, but it's a process to make the game actually better. And we're trying our darndest to make people comfortable in that process. And I realize that telling me that, things will get better in the future does not make them better now. Like, yeah, absolutely. Don't be happy with that answer, but understand that if you're not happy now, ideally, we will make you happier in the future, and we'll make everybody happier because we'll make the game better. And that's just the constant grind of progress.
It it clearly it clearly takes time, and I think that is something that people do need to remember when it comes to these things. Like, you talk about the lead time for various reasons, and I do think that is not talked about enough. But so that said, if I was an Empire player, I would say potentially that back in November we weren't doing well either, and like Sis and Rebels were sort of like hanging in there. Uh, and like there were urgent changes that were taken then, and they were for good reason. It wasn't just clones; it was also a little bit to EXD, and a little bit to medics, which ironically was for an Empire list that seemed to be doing well across the pond over there. And I think that my question would be, was the thought that Empire would benefit more than the other factions from the Republic nerfs in terms of the reason why, like, they weren't having buffs actively being tested at the time?
I can talk to that a little bit. And I think the answer is no, not really.
Okay.
Right. We had some thoughts, right? We had just released a giant update.
Yeah.
And I talked about this yesterday on the live stream, right? We don't know where everything's going to go.
Yeah.
Right. We have our best guesses. We do play test. We play test internally. We play test externally. We can guess, but we only get a few hundred games of these things, right? Which is a lot, but it's not like the astronomical amount. Like, Mike, how many games were played? Several thousand, 6,000, I think I saw on there.
Yeah.
It was 5,500 in that first sample, and then about 6,300 in that second sample.
So, like,
there was 3,000 Empire games alone.
Y'all have played 100 times more Empire games than we have, whatever that number is, right? So we do the best that we can with the information that we have to do those things. So could we predict that these changes would help the other factions? Yes, we did do that, right? That's why we didn't change a bunch of stuff in Rebels, even though Rebels was struggling a lot as well, right? Because we were like, look, I think if we take out all this high velocity and we take out all this kind of stuff, that's going to make Rebels a lot better. They get to do their thing now. We brought down EXD a little bit. That was preying on Rebels a little bit as well. Sleeper Cells came out. We're not going to ignore that one either. But like,
and
all
Aquas
of
came
these
out too.
things conglomerate together.
Yeah,
whatever. Shick doesn't like my sticky words.
Your what words?
Not that sticky.
Yeah, there's yeah,
oozing and dripping are the ones where I'm like, you can use those words, but they're not great. They're not great words.
You can say coalesce.
Yeah.
To change things. So
More
did
writer,
we expect
everybody.
that like this change to Republic would fix Empire? No, because I'm not really sure that we had seen that there was a huge problem in Empire. And Mike, if you don't mind pulling back up the charts.
Yeah, absolutely.
As
We're pulling the charts back up, Mike.
Hey.
As a data guy who is less emotional than Shick about these things, meaning less
wow, shots fired.
Thrown,
wow.
Like if you look at the distribution between these win rates, like 43 to 56 is 13%. That's a lot, right?
Yeah.
But in the grand scheme of things, it's not enormous, right? So this is sort of why we didn't make sweeping changes at the November update, is because sure, you have 13% in the middle. Well, if we take Republic down a little bit, that's going to bring Rebels up. That's going to maybe bring Empire up. Separatists are doing great. So what happens? Cool. Well, we do it, and then now we're at not post Adepticon, right? Empire came up, and Rebel Alliance is now at 55. So we did squish it a little bit with our update, right? As those things get closer, and Shick always talks about that these things exist on a curve. Right?
Yeah.
There's always going to be variance between the factions. There's always going to be these things, and if that curve gets smaller, that's great. But it can never reach zero, because then we're playing checkers, as Shick always likes to say, where everything is identical, and that's the kind of thing that we have there. And that's never the goal. But whereas Galactic Empire is the bottom and stayed the bottom and has been the bottom for quite a while, they were the top not that long ago. And then changes happened, right? We went to the 2.6. They weren't able to play the scenarios as well as other people. Blizzard, of course, wasn't doing great there, right? Like we see all of these things and we understand those things. But at the end, it's not emergency change time, right? We're at 44%. Like that's maybe, let's assume that the goal is between 55 and 45. Right. 44 is real close, right? To an acceptable rate for these kind of things. So do things need to be done? Yes, absolutely. But we're not in emergency change time, I guess is where I'm at here, right? We're in the let's go through these things, let's identify the real problems, let's identify what's going on, and then address from there.
And I think that when you look at it from a cold calculating Will Pagani, may we say, point of view, that yes, I think that it's hard to argue against that kind of a numerical argument. I think that to get to more of the Will Shick side, the real weepy side.
It's what the internet runs on, to be fair.
Yeah.
It doesn't run on the Pagani fuel. It runs on my fuel.
This is a whole other podcast, as Kyle Dornbos would say. But to get more to the weepy Will Shick side, I think that
it just gets worse for me. I think the weather's getting bad over here, guys. I don't know. The power might go out soon.
Weepy Will Shick
is going to be the new thing in the office for sure.
We're sorry.
Sweet. Yeah, glad to help. I think that the major issue we're seeing is that even if you're only like slightly off of that ideal curve, if you're the one that's slightly off that ideal curve, for two sections of time in a row, then there certainly builds up this feeling of we are the kid that's being picked on. Sure. And so I think that it's important to just like say that I don't think that you guys are blind to the fact that Empire players, like, because of where they've been, are disappointed. I mean, it's just how it is.
I think again, right? And a part that I'm sure we're going to talk about is the fact that, or I think you even mentioned beforehand, right? Is that in the update with the fact that we determined now rather than at launch to effectively provide the entirety of the new edition to players, which
Yeah.
meant also providing the deletions, right?
Yeah.
Um, and Empire got hit the most with those, unfortunately. You know, they lost 2 units completely, and they also have effectively lost a third unit card, but they didn't lose the unit itself, right? Because the Imperial officer still can go as an upgrade, but it's no longer the Imperial officer unit.
It'll
Um,
be something cooler soon anyway, though. So yeah, that one I don't think anybody's really that
Yeah,
upset
I
about.
mean, yes, but also if we're talking about Weepy Will Shickland, right? The idea
Sure.
that you're already feeling a little downtrodden and
Yeah.
you get whammed with,
Another kick, yeah.
these other things that even if let's just say that Empire is at the top of the pile and they've got the 57% win rate or whatever, losing things is not a fun experience. We talked
No.
about this a decent amount and we always do, right? As hobby miniatures players, we put a lot of time, energy, and effort into those things, and watching them, get removed from edition to edition is something. If you've played these games for a long time, you've become maybe a little a nerd too, but it doesn't feel good every time. And that is, unfortunately, it is part of a living game system. Is that not everything is going to be a forever friend, and especially when you're looking at something where you work with partners like we do, right? How many times are things going to change a little bit? A great example of that is, think about when Disney acquired LFL and suddenly a huge swath of the IP and the mythology changed from canon, quote unquote, to legends, right?
Yep.
And those ripple effects and impacts went across everything, every product or thing that was off of that. um how those things are approved, how they get reviewed, they change. And for the same reason that a developer might look at something and say, is this unit, does this unit provide what we need into the next phase, or is it taking up space and there's not, we can do better, or we can
Yeah.
find a different spot for it, right? It goes back to that pruning conversation of what is healthiest for the long-term environment and all of that. We as developers do that from the game rules and standpoint. LFL does it from a story standpoint and a media standpoint, right? They have stories still to tell. They have ideas and creative minds that want to do certain things within the stories themselves. They have to make sure that they're setting themselves up for success as well. And sometimes that comes back to, what was allowable or provable previously doesn't quite fit in with the vision now. If that comes down to like a Legends story or a Legend character, and now they're no longer within the mythology of the current canon, or galaxy, or is it something else to do with whatever, right? So the that is kind of where we were. What we didn't want to do, and I realized that it's like pick your poison, right? What we didn't want to do was keep those things in for the next 4 or 5 months, or even up until the November update, and then suddenly be like, hey, guess what? Those things that maybe you've built all of these emergent strategies around and now are somewhat important to this fundamental system are gone, right? Um, that to us was more detrimental, or it seemed more painful overall than ripping the band-aid off now and saying, yes, unfortunately, these are the moves, but you have the full system. You can make an informed judgment on based on all the things that are here and know the game is stable for until November, right? Or until some other update is required of it, until new things come in. And you didn't feel like you got, if we came on and we said, here it is, here's the whole new edition, and it had these things that we knew we were going to remove because they're going to get removed, right?
Yeah.
There's at the point that it happened, at the point that those decisions were made, right? There was no other option. Like all of the conversations had happened, all of the discussion had happened, all of the decision making had happened. A ton of future development had been based off of those discussions and decisions, both internally and externally with partners at LFL. Like, there's no world in which suddenly, the timeline breaks and we wind up not having to remove those things. So which one's worse, right? This kind of goes back to the conversations about and the debate about how the new edition from 2.6 to now has rolled out. There are absolutely different ways to do it, right? Just like we could have not told people yesterday that these things are getting removed and then removed them in 4 months, right? And been like, surprise, that wasn't true. You didn't have the whole game in its entirety. You had more than you should have, and now we're gonna like fix that.
That would have been worse. It would
right?
have. This would have been.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's
anyway.
it's just perspective, right? And I'm not trying to convince people either way. I'm just trying to point out that like we do think about how these paths go, right? We're not blindly just wandering down these roads. We do try to predict and look at, okay, what is in the best interest of the players, even if it's painful in the immediate future. Does it hopefully lead us to a better result down the road, right?
Yeah.
And also, it may not feel this way, but like we talk about our consideration and our concern for retailers, right? We believe in the local game store. We want to see them succeed. We do everything we can that's possible to make sure that they have the tools for success based on our experiences within the local game stores and everything else. We try to do the same for players, right? We really believe and feel passionate about communities and providing people the best experiences they can have. So when we have to do things that are negative, it really sucks, but that's just part of the gig. And so instead what we say is, okay, we have to do these things for the health and longevity of the game. How do we do them in a way that is the best for players? And those decisions get made, and you can agree with those things or not. And that goes back to the point that I started on, which is the same is true of how 2.6, the rollout for this whole process happened, right? There's absolutely a viable strategy of don't release it until it's ready, but, analyze that path. And what does that mean? So in July, what do we talk about at Mini-Strav? Because we can't talk about anything that has to the new edition. And so we give you a roadmap and we say, here are some cool things that are coming. And there's maybe some stuff, but a lot of it is resculpts. And there's not, how far into the future do we go promising these things?
Well, we know what it would be, right? It would be Sleepers, Riots, Aquas, Crabs.
Yeah. I mean, and maybe we dip into you show the Ahsoka, right? It would be the same stuff that we showed in the Robat previously, but that would be it. There'd be no big rule shakeups. Maybe we can just adjust points to show something's happening, right? We could shuffle some points around because that's fairly okay, but we can't provide rebalanced cards. We don't have the ability to provide rebalanced cards without the whole kit and caboodle, right?
Yeah.
So we don't have the ability to playtest rigorously points changes for a version of the game that is no longer going to be going forward, right? So at that time, you would receive not untested, but not thoroughly tested points updates.
Yeah.
Right.
So we just kind of shake the snow globe to shake the snow globe and make people feel like something's happening, but it's probably not a very good shakeup. And then what occurs, right? Well, we have to move the old product out because we know we're reboxing and repacking it all, right?
Yeah.
And we don't want retailers to be stuck with dead stock.
Yeah.
We have a very slow new release cycle because, again, we know we're moving to this new system, but we can't say anything about it until, let's say, April. Let's say we do. I think that's the big one, right? Why not just announce it all at Adepticon in April? So there's minimal new releases. There's no real new information. The future-looking roadmap is fairly sparse, right? We have just come off of all of these, a very tumultuous time where we have, completed X-Wing and Armada. Like, let's just be real, because we have to take in all these things into account, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And no matter if those reasons for those games kind of becoming complete, and being sunset in terms of new development match at all with Legion or not, it's going to be used, right? Like there's a slowdown, there's nothing new, there's no product on the shelves. What's going on? Is that so the analysis is that better or worse than being transparent, saying, hey, we're making this big shakeup. It will take time, but we have it done now. We want to provide all this new info to you to shake up the game and hopefully make you excited for the future and to bring value into the stuff that you already have. Because as we tried to explain over and over again, right, and restate that products were going to become scarce because there was this huge reboxing effort, and we accepted the fact that it was going to be harder for new players to come in. But what we wanted to do was support the existing community, because we believed if we could support and maintain the current community in the game, that would set up the game for greater success when we got to the point to where we could bring in new players more effectively with the new starters and all the stuff that was happening.
Yeah.
Right. Neither of those options are great. No one's going to sit here and be like, yeah, those are the home run options, but those are the real options that you had. So which one do you pick, right? And everyone has their own perspective on which one they picked. And a lot of people make those assumptions based on personal feelings and not knowing how things work fundamentally within like everything, right? Like you can look at a building and say, I would have put the bathroom here, but an architect or a plumber would tell you that's a terrible spot to put it because they have knowledge that you don't, right?
Right.
So what are you going to do there? And here it's the same idea. Like, and I don't expect that to change anyone's opinions. I'm not trying to tell you that you're wrong if you feel certain ways, but like I just want to provide the perspective and at least showcase that like we're not thinking about these things. We're thinking about these things constantly.
Right. And
so
and from
where do you get to that, right?
From that, like to take that also to circle back to Palpatine, it would be my guess, and you can tell us whether this is true or not. My guess would be that part of the reason of why he wasn't like him and the IRG and Pathfinders were not like taken back at the original like mini extravaganza time when 2.6 first launched, and that the reason for that was because you all were still exploring ways to make those things happen.
Yeah,
I mean, is that the case?
I mean, obviously, I think it's easy to, well, hopefully you can infer the fact that like we made, if we made the decision to do it in April, to not pull the rug out of people in November or October, right? Then that logic would have applied earlier.
Yeah,
right?
You did it as soon as it was a final call, and that's basically the way it shook out. And I think that all of us can hope that all of these units will, maybe sometime in the future have a way to find their way into the game again, just because like the more variety of characters that people have access to, the better generally. That we will find out if, especially Pathfinders ends up like coming back in some sort of a different-ish form on the horizon. But for now, there's still a lot there, and I think that I hope that everybody out there, heard all that and that they take something home from it. Like it goes without saying that there are going to be people who feel unsatisfied with that because that's just how things are. But I will just say that I appreciate you just being like as honest about it as you are. Sorry, I'm like that came out wrong. It's like I appreciate you being honest about it. And I realize that there are like all of these corporate level intricacies that go into this. And I'm sure that that's actually stuff that Mike and I are going to talk about on our own, when we're just like casting about it later. But I think that you guys are telling us, you are telling us the facts, and obviously like nobody's ever going to have a complete zoomed in vision on what the inner workings of a studio are going to be. But I think that we're probably just going to have to learn to deal with the information that we have right here. And that's not me talking to you. That's me talking to the audience. So anyway, with that, I do appreciate all that. I think we'll scooch on to talking some more rules and design stuff. We're actually let's take a brief interlude.
Brief interlude.
We're gonna take a brief interlude to talk about area terrain. And now you guys have already seen this. You've already told me about how impressed you are by the artistry. Is that I made the best diorama that I could with the 5 minutes that I basically had leading up to this. So this involves a cheese board, some sticky tack, and toothpicks. We got some short toothpicks over here and some tall cocktail toothpicks over here. So hopefully folks can see at least well enough. I'm gonna like align it like that. So this triangle is area terrain, right? It's like reeds or marshes or whatever.
Yeah.
Great.
It is
Tall grass.
tall grass. It is shorter than this Chewbacca fellow over here and this rebel trooper over here. Everybody agrees with that, right?
But I think it is important
It's
to point out
silhouettes.
that it's a silhouette.
It's a silhouette, correct. So a silhouette is made by whatever like piece of sticker that these toothpicks are affixed to, that it makes like a circle, and that's your area terrain. And it stands out on the map. The cheese board is not part of the terrain. The cheese board is the mat in this example, and the toothpicks are all together on like one circle. So basically, Chewie and the Rebel Trooper, even though they're on opposite sides, can see each other. It would
Correct.
provide cover, but that's it. They can still see each other and have fun shooting at each other all day. Rebel Troopers are
Yes.
probably in trouble in that scenario. Okay, so now we're going to flip the scenario a little bit. We have these tall space reeds that are super tall.
You can call them trees.
Yeah, trees even. God. Like, it's a
Didn't you say
scientist
you were
over
a
here.
writer, dude?
Yeah, I might have to take that one back. Anyway, we have these trees, as you say it, that are taller than a silhouette. And let's say that the Chewie and the Rebel Trooper silhouettes are on opposite sides to each other. The circle of the area terrain completely encompasses them. In this scenario, they cannot see each other, correct?
Completely does not encompass them. Right?
They're not
Well,
in that
sorry,
area. They're not
I
in
mean,
the reeds.
They're not in the reeds, right? So I should be more clear, is that they are completely behind the circle of the area terrain
Yes.
from each other, is what I mean.
Correct. Because the
so-
silhouette of the area terrain is taller than the
taller.
trooper silhouette.
Right.
Therefore, they cannot
see each other.
They can only draw obstructed lines through the terrain, which would not give line of sight.
Right. And so let's say this rebel trooper is a moron and he steps into the
Value
forest.
judgments happening here that I don't know if I'm okay with.
Yeah, well, we're the Notorious Scoundrels. We're allowed to make value judgments over here.
This
We
is
make
not
we
That's
make
what we
tier lists
do.
all the
I
time.
approve. I approve.
Yeah. Saint Your Mama's podcast.
This is why Rebel Troopers are D tier right now, because they step into reeds when they shouldn't.
No
Exactly.
heavy weapons.
So now they can both see each other, correct?
Correct.
Because when you're in the area terrain, and we should say, do you have to be completely within the area terrain in order for this to happen? Or do you just need to be touching it?
I believe the rule
I
is
would read the
within,
rule book, but I think it's just
if you
within.
check the rule, just if the
The
rule
rule book
says
says,
completely
yeah.
within, completely
Got it.
within. I am
not all that important for this, but
I am 90% sure it is within though. Is
Okay.
where we landed on that.
So as long, yeah. So in that case, as long as he's like touching the area terrain, they can see each other.
Correct.
And I was just pointing that out because it's really hard to like use words to describe that situation if you haven't played another war game that uses very similar rules. And I just wanted to see if we could just do some quick education right there. So I appreciate y'all confirming all that.
So I think there are some other things that we can also hit while we're here.
Sure,
For
sure.
Places where people might get hung up, right?
Yeah.
So let's say that there's perhaps an ATST fell over. Oops. And you're completely inside the terrain, but you're behind the cab of the ATST. You can still be seen. So it is not a true line of sight situation for area terrain anymore, which means that the actual elements inside of the boundary of the area terrain are completely irrelevant. All they
Right.
do is they define the height of the silhouette. You're essentially making a Pringles can or something like that out of the terrain, and you can enter that Pringles can. And while you're inside of it, you can be seen, you can see out, and you will have cover. You will be obscured.
And if you don't want to have the headache, you can just call that ATST an obstacle, and then you don't have to worry about it.
Correct. And then you don't have to worry about that.
What were you
So
saying, Mike?
however you want to do that kind of thing. But if you have
Yeah.
a big tree on a template,
Yeah.
right, the actual physical location of that tree on that template is not relevant.
It's
You are fully
essentially the
hidden behind it,
same
you can still
vehicle
be.
silhouette rules, right? Like as far as like generating a silhouette for a
Right.
vehicle,
Yes.
it's
Yeah.
the same for area terrain,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
I think first of all, I think that that is like a really good change because it allows for it allows for more modeling opportunities for people who make terrain, but also I think that it is thematic from the point of view of just like guys shooting from a forest. Like that happens all the time. They're shooting at one group is behind barricades and the other group is behind a forest. I can think of a Mandalorian episode where this literal thing happened. Uh, and and but by comparison, you're not going to shoot a guy on the other side of a forest. It just doesn't make any sense.
Correct. Yes.
Yeah.
So
It is
yeah,
abstracted, right?
right.
It's so we have to sort of agree that this is how this is going to work, and that's what
Yeah.
as we bring these rules for it. It also brings in a new sort of type of terrain that can be utilized in Legion because the vast majority of Legion tables are barricades and buildings, right? And
Yeah,
that's it.
I agree.
Area
Yeah.
terrain, I think, is now a very functional and very valuable line of sight blocking terrain piece that you can walk through without having to climb. And maybe it's rough terrain, maybe it's not. That's up to you and your opponent and how the table is set up. But all of that is now there. And that brings strength to keywords that let you move through that kind of stuff. That brings a very different strategy that you can do now. It also interacts with things like Death from Above, Entre Notions, but we need to get into the specifics on that. Other keyword interactions with it. So
It makes the concept of low profile like extra makes sense
absolutely.
when you're sort of thinking about that, and then it becomes like extra spooky when all at first you see no Ewoks, and then all of a sudden like
All the Ewoks.
all of a sudden there's 18 Ewoks there.
I mean, we've all played the Battlefront scenario with
Oh
true.
yeah,
the
God,
murder
Classic.
Ewoks in the forest. Yeah,
I will
classic.
say that is some of the most entertainment that my wife has ever had watching me play a video game is watching me play Ewok Hunt.
I actually bought that
that's
game exclusively to play Ewok. So
good call. On the subject of a little bit more rules minutia, we appreciate our patrons. We did like a little hangout yesterday, and so we talked about various questions that came up, and I got a couple quick ones. The first one is HQ uplink is weird because it's not unique and it's not unique. It's limited. And currently the Battle Force documents only make exceptions for unique upgrades. So what is the deal with HQ uplink, if you please, Mr. Pagani?
yes. I cannot speak for literally every single Battle Force, although I believe it is all of them. Darcy will be the expert on that one. But it should be allowed in all of them, and that is a mistake on our part. We will make that clear very soon. And I know that is
Follow-up question. What HQ would Ewoks have been talking to, Mr. Pagani?
I actually think it's like two cans with a string. And then maybe there's someone on the other end, maybe
hey,
not.
There's rebels in that battle force, Evan. Give a minute break.
There's no way the Ewoks have cans. It's more like those tube communicators on playgrounds where like you have like a
yeah.
They just grow
But
the
they're
trees
carrying
that
it with
way
them.
and they use roots.
Oh.
I can believe that.
Yeah.
Hey, I appreciate that off the cuff question to really like hit on the canon issues here, but we'll move on from that. Imperial Remnant, the current way it is worded, the reason why it seemed obvious to me that there's just like a little bit of a typo is that the only way for it to actually work would be for you to magically give your commander prepared positions, which I'm not even sure is actually possible. Because it has to do with the fact that the commander has to not be within range 2 and the unit has to be undeployed for the unit to get independent, which means that, yeah, the commander would have to start off the field and then you would get independent once. I'm guessing that this is not the intent and that this will be updated.
Correct, yes. I believe there is a missing or in there, which is you are undeployed or not within range 2 of your commander.
That,
those pesky words.
I really wish I had just like realized that it was literally a single malapropism, and then I could predict. Yeah, I feel weak as a writer right now, even weaker than I did before I could remember what trees are. All right, so I appreciate I appreciate those clarifications. I know that there's like a couple other things that we're probably going to hear about. It is relatively insane the number of images that had to go up at the same time, and like stuff happens, and stuff is going to happen, and you guys are fixing when stuff happens, and we appreciate it. It will be fixed. Aside from the things that actually don't need to be fixed, such as the change to Clone Medic, Mike, I'm going to turn it over to you because this was a little bit of a surprise.
Yeah, so I definitely the first time I looked at the rules doc and I was like, the clone medic is now a squad leader upgrade. I was a little bit like taken aback because that seems really strong. Um, it looks like the engineer isn't a squad leader. And I was just
Right.
wondering if you guys could talk about the methodology and changing the medics into squad leaders and why
So
the
one of the big
engineer
hopes
wasn't.
was so Empire and Republic. We're getting a little future here, but the idea is that the larger squads are hopefully going to become a bigger thing in those factions specifically. They're the sort of standing armies, those kind of things. So one of the things that you can't do is you can't take a medic and a squad that's a big boy squad.
Sure.
So one of the hopes there is that that will be a play pattern that emerges that we can promote through perhaps future points updates or other
Sure.
things.
Cool.
Okay.
So that was sort of an interaction we wanted there. And then, of course, that does put him in other places. We'll see how that goes.
Yeah. Does that immediately put arcs back on your watch list out of curiosity? Because it puts them on mine.
They're back, baby.
Yeah.
I mean, we discussed it, but no more so than the Guardian really did, and how his impact would have on them. So,
Okay.
I think it'll be interesting to watch.
Mhm.
It's something we'll pay attention to, but internal discussions, looking at it through testing, it is certainly strong. It didn't seem to be overly strong based on other options that you could make with them.
Okay.
Yeah,
Um,
and I mean, arcs were something that was touched back in the November update, right?
Yeah.
The game is constantly evolving,
Sure.
right?
Yeah.
And arcs are one of the strongest things in Republic. Are they too
Definitely.
strong? Are they not strong enough? Well, they're definitely not strong enough. But are they too strong? That's constantly something that we're looking at, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
So, and this is the whole game at the same time. The watch list is not exhaustive.
Sure.
Well, yeah, and I mean, and there's that fine line between something being strong is good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
things are allowed to be
Absolutely.
good.
Absolutely.
Let's be
Strong and
clear.
not strong
I'm-
things. Like but that fine line that is very hard to judge at times without more games or just seeing how players approach it is it too strong, right?
Well,
So
yeah.
do we believe that it might be a boost to arcs? Yeah. Do we think that it's going to push them over? Our initial analysis says no. We don't expect that to be the case. If it does become the case, then obviously it will get adjusted.
I'm going to press you a little bit on that, Will. So just try not to get weepy for me.
Go
Okay.
for it. I'll do my best.
So I agree with you. I will say that looking at it right now, as somebody who has spent most of his Legion time playing Republic, even before they got medics, I was looking at arcs and sort of wistfully looking at the idea of playing Wookiees in a non-Wookiee Battle Force scenario, and just sort of going like, well, I want to play a Charger. I could play the one that throws a lot of modified dice, or the one that throws less unmodified dice when they charge in. And so, like, the current state, I will sort of speak for, I think, most Republic players, is that, if we're talking about, I think the idea would be that Wookiees are like the actual melee charger, and then arcs are the skirmisher slash sometimes charger. Whereas in reality, I think that we look at them both as chargers. And when I look between the two, if I'm looking at it from an efficiency standpoint, I'm probably going to take the arcs every time. And so when it comes to that point of like, is it too good to offset the balance of the entire meta? Probably not. At least they were before, I think. And so you rightfully smushed them. But now, even with this medic thing, I don't think they're going to take over. per se,
I
but
reserve the right.
with, I mean, sleepers are still out there, Mike. But I will say that from an internal faction standpoint, it does feel there's a sentiment within Republic players that taking ARFs or Wookiees is kind of a mistake because you're giving up the opportunity of taking a super duper good unit in the arcs that can actually do a little bit of everything, even long range shooting if you take the sniper. So I guess I'm just curious about like does internal faction balance, like how much does that matter compared to like global meta balance when it comes to making these decisions?
It certainly
I think it matters a
matters.
lot.
Yeah. I mean,
It does
100%.
depend, but it matters a lot.
But I think the question is do you one, right? The hope is that the medic leads to what Pagani talked about, which is we see larger squads potentially being used more. There
Mm-hmm.
are potentially more updates that may happen to adjust that, right? It's something
Yeah.
that's on our desired list. We talked in our first interview how we were very conservative on the big squads. And
Yeah.
maybe that was too conservative, right? And so in the factions where we really want to see that big squad identity, we can be a little more aggressive now that we have all this info, those kinds of things.
Sure.
But yeah, does internal balance within a faction matter? 100%. Does that mean that arcs need to get worse or that Wookiees and maybe arcs need a little bit of help? How do you do that?
Yeah.
There's two different ways, right? The initial, again, not every change happens all at once. I think as Pagani was kind of discussing a little bit before,
Right.
and so when we introduce things or we make changes, sometimes that's okay. Does it upset the internal faction status quo? No. All right. Like that might be okay. Does it dramatically shift the status quo? And is that something we want at this point in time? That's a different discussion, right? So it's analyzing various things with different outcomes in mind or what the goal of the current update is meant to do. I guess if that answers the question. I don't know if Pagani wants to add more to that.
I do. I think this problem existed before the medic change.
No, I
It
100%
did,
agree.
and
Right.
so
Yeah. I think
that's
this
why
is just,
Mike and I are a little
yeah.
bit worried about it because I think it actually magnifies that issue a little bit.
Sure, but I mean, the problem checkbox has already been checked, so anything
Okay.
that just checks it again has already like it's
Yeah.
a toggle, right? Like,
Yeah, I hear you.
it's
But,
already
I mean,
toggled on. So
the key point is that it wasn't introduced. It wasn't introduced as like an arc buff. It was not introduced as a clone infantry buff. It was introduced to open up list making decisions in the future. Is basically what it sounds like.
Yeah,
sure,
and
yeah.
I mean,
So a slight peek behind the curtain, right? The
Yeah.
reason that this is done now
Yeah.
and not in the future is these are the cards from the card packs, right? So this is what
Yeah,
has
of
gone.
course. Of course.
So if
Has
we're
to
going to make the
match.
change in the future, we're not going to remake the card
Right.
now, give you a wrong card, and then change it and update it again when the card pack comes out, right?
Yeah.
So that's why it happened now, I guess, is
Sure.
is the discussion to have, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I guess maybe I didn't catch this or not, but is it was specifically for the medic as opposed to the engineer. It is like what was the rationale there?
well, largely it's because the medic has more impact on a bigger squad than an engineer does, right? So
The
we're
medic
trying to
can heal
promote
its
more
own
bodies.
squad is maybe what
More
they're
bodies
saying.
and that kind of thing, right? The engineer.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
All right, cool. Thanks you for that. To talk a little bit more about some of the cards that left us that don't have obviously any like emotional attachment per se, but certainly had some gameplay relevance. Aggressive tactics, comms relay.
Hey, I have a very strong emotional attachment to aggressive tactics. I gotta be honest.
Yeah,
It's in
I
like
mean,
80% of the lists I build.
Mike's been playing Republic a very long time, so I suppose I'm not speaking for him when I talk about aggressive tactics and its relation to emotions. But so we heard Andrew Dursum talk on the stream about the reasons for this, which was that certainly aggressive tactics, it was limiting commander choices because it motivated you to take command cards for only one person so that you could nominate them all the time and get your search tokens. So I do think that it did have like a list building influence in a way that like you could certainly argue was a little bit anti diversity within a list.
For sure.
However, for Republic especially, this faction has been sort of leaning on aggressive tactics for a long time. Some might say since it's existed ever. Like even Obi's already always had a command slot. Aggressive tact and so is Grievous. Aggressive tactics was in that Clone Wars starter back in the day.
Yeah,
So
I also like the thing that I was most excited about, like little Ahsoka having, was her command slot at 110 points. I was like, we
Me
can
too.
put 110 points for aggressive tactics. Woo! You know, like this is great.
Yeah, so I mean, we can talk about
go
aggressive
ahead.
tactics a little bit, right?
Yeah,
And
sure.
some of the specifics. Um, aggressive tactics gives out surge tokens.
Mhm.
At this point, I feel like every time we do an update, we're like, surge tokens and clones are bananas. So I will do it again. Surge tokens and clones are bananas. Mike, you can back me up.
I definitely can back you up. I would say that I feel like they're sort of required though. Like you can't not have them in clones. Like clones also require them to succeed.
Sure.
Clearly you should pay an
Yeah.
appropriate amount for
And-
those search tokens, which I
here's
think
my
is
next step.
completely fair.
Yeah. Yeah. Go ahead, Will.
And here's my next step. We talked about aggressive tactics being the next force push points change, right? Is this thing 40 points? Is this thing 60 points? Right? If those surge tokens each contribute to one saved clone body, going back to the mathematics here, with saves, how many points does this card need to be?
Yeah.
And the answer is a god-awful large amount. And then you can apply that same idea to Empire. It's less impactful in Empire, but it exists.
Yeah.
It's less impactful in Separatists, but it exists. It's even less impactful in Rebels, but it exists, right?
Sure.
Because, well,
Rebels surges,
actually, sure, it's really
most
relevant in
of
Rebels,
the time.
but that's fine. Whatever. Like, so the big ones are the red save units because they don't inherently surge defense. And if you do, we all know how the math works out on that. It gets very, very, very strong very quickly.
Yep.
Yeah.
So could we have made this a 50-point upgrade, a 40-point upgrade, a 60-point upgrade? Sure, we could, or we could just remove it and not worry about it. And then it also, as Evan pointed out, has the gameplay implications of, well, now I want to focus on one commander. I have to issue the orders. We could have taken that out. Now it's just a blanket card. Am I taking two of them? Like all this kind of stuff, right? Like it goes into this whole wild thing of like, how is this going to stack? How is this going to apply with all these different buffs? What are all these things? Do we even like this card?
I'm gonna be honest. It
right?
was more of a requirement than
Right.
a fun thing.
It was a hall pass is basically what it felt
exactly,
like.
right?
But it was a hall pass that I think the faction was costed around.
I guess I think my primary question, at least in regards to aggressive tactics, is like, is the design space of giving clones like affordable surge tokens, is that something that you guys are like intentionally designing future stuff for, or is the intent moving forward that surge tokens should be more scarce within the faction?
I think in general, clones are over surging for not particularly paying for it. Right? Aggressive tactics was very cheap and was giving out multiple surge tokens a turn. You can still take the clone commander. He's got bolster. You can take some of the leader upgrades to get surge tokens. You can take clone infantry to get surge tokens. Like there are options inside the faction that can generate those tokens. Are they perfectly costed right now? We'll see, right?
Sure.
Like this is one of the things where we're like, we're not going to do sweeping point updates right now because we don't know how all of these things are going to play out, right? We just don't.
To piggyback onto that real quick, I am curious. Do you think that the customizable commanders adds like extra variables to your concern about like how things are going to change?
Those things are highly variable.
Pagani, I loved your face right there.
Yeah, I know.
Like...
I liked it. Get a screenshot of that, Mike.
It's like, yes, I am concerned.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not concerned as in like I think they're going to be broken or busted or wild or whatever, but
no, but
like,
it's a lot.
I'm concerned in the there are it's introducing a significant number of variables into the
Right,
game
right.
that we need to see what happens, right? We've seen what adding Sleeper Cell to the game did. We see what adding Aqua Droids to the game did, right?
Yeah.
Like this is almost certainly more impactful than those, just from a variable standpoint. I'm not saying they're higher power level or lower power level, whatever, right? I'm just saying like from a data-driven analytical perspective, these are a huge number of variables that are added into the game. And the doctrine cards are listed in the battle forces now. So you guys
Yes.
kind of see how many options these things are going to have.
It basically seems like there's going to be around 14 new units from if you sort of like, got
Doctrine
very
is like a new
basic about
unit
it.
or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. And then you can permutate through the weapons and all that kind of
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah, yeah.
It goes to the moon for all the different options that are inside of these customizable commanders.
But by the
And
way,
seeing how that goes,
yeah, I mean, so that
very exciting for me. I
we're
love it.
we're excited too. And like this is great because right after I got done talking to you, Will Shick at Adepticon, I definitely there were two questions where I was like, "Gah, I knew I should have asked that," and you probably would have answered it. So here's my chance. One, it looks like the Imperial box for customizables is like bigger than the other ones. Is that like a trick of the eye, or is there actually something going on there?
Maybe you can write a do back.
Yeah. No,
How to do
so I can tell you the answer to it. I'm gonna tell you the answer. You're gonna be like, that is the most boring vanilla answer ever. But
Oh,
it's
we're
the
all
truth.
about that.
Yeah.
We're the Notorious Scoundrels.
So the box size is determined by the framing of the,
I knew it.
miniature,
I
right?
knew it.
And
Yeah.
so when they laid out those parts, given some of the parts that are in that set, they had to use a larger frame to contain everything than they did for the other ones.
Okay.
So in the other
Got it.
ones, they instead of getting one big frame, you get two little frames.
Yeah, yeah,
In the Imperial one, you get a big frame, and then I think you get a little frame as well, if I remember the tooling correctly. So it required a bigger box. It just required a longer box because that's the most efficient and cost-effective way to be able to break down what the Imperial officer makes.
yeah.
There, I know people have been like, "Oh, we must come with a lot more parts," because Dallas made an offhanded comment he shouldn't have made, but we all like to do this from time to time about how one of them that we're working on has like 40 plus parts. It's not any of these. So I guess there's your spoiler. There's more in the
Ooh,
future, if
okay.
you were wondering. It
Finally,
just
Mike, we
came
got a
down to
parts-based
how
spoiler on Notorious Scoundrel.
it just came down to the engineering and how the framing worked, and
Okay.
everyone's response to like, is that bigger, was the same one I had when I first saw the box. I was like, wait, we've made a mistake because all the other ones are this size. Why is this one this size? Somebody must have screwed up. And so we actually went back through our partners at Asmodee with the production department and everything, and they were like, no, that's right, because this is how it worked out.
How fast does your heartbeat pick up when something like that comes through? Like,
Oh, when I see those things,
yeah.
it kind of depends on when it comes up, right?
Yeah.
That time, not too much because it was when we were reviewing the slides for the roadmap.
Mhm.
Sure.
But there have absolutely been times where it's like, I mean, yeah, there's just things that happen because I'm in on a lot of the development stuff, or I'm in on a lot of the art stuff, or anything else. But for the most part, those departments do operate without me. Like they do their own thing. So there are definitely times where it's like something will get asked, and I'm like, I don't actually know, and then I have to go like find it out, or my assumption about it is wrong.
Right.
So and there have been times where like it's popped up on like the social media, and I've gone, did we just screw up? Because that's not what I thought. And then I'll go through and I'll be like, no, I'm just wrong.
I'm sure that's horrifying. So I'm not jealous of that.
It's an exciting time when those, thankfully it's not very often, but there absolutely have been times where I've gone back and had to suss it out. So
Crit to block.
Yeah.
mhm.
We all remember.
We all remember. Yeah, that one was pretty easy though. I was like, oh no, we just
Whoops.
got that wrong.
I mean, it made for some great jokes, so it was worth it.
did.
My other question, one that's maybe more gameplay relevant, is I'm not sure if you've answered before about whether these customizables do they have commands related to their doctrines, or are they using generic commands from the faction and
And
the
to be
starter
clear,
set?
command cards, not
Command cards,
command
sorry,
slot
yeah.
upgrades.
Command cards, yeah.
There There are no, as far as I recall, there are no specific command cards tied to doctrines.
That is correct.
Continue.
So there are some new command cards.
That is correct. I was like, how spoilery are we going here?
Cool.
And that's where I think we'll end it.
That's
Hey.
totally fun. I was like, Evan, this is gonna get really, really crazy if like you can like a la carte pick from like 40 command cards in the box. Like, I don't know.
Oh, that
Yeah,
box
and
is
then
big.
I could have pretend to be a real big brain, even though I'm just like going by the seat of my pants here. But yeah, I appreciate the answers, and that gives me hope that Wookiee defenders may have more than a couple command cards to look forward to, given that they get Jedi Knights coming up. So I am very excited. But to again circle back to the upgrade discussion, one I did want to hit on was comms relay. I am guessing that this was also in an effort to reduce future problematic interactions with planned releases, or is there something else going on there?
Well, there's a lot of things going on with comms relay, and all of these cards that kind of give orders. HQ uplink is another one, right?
Yeah, I love limiting that, by the way. Just want to say, big fan.
Yeah. So there's a philosophy generally about free orders in the game and how they interact with command cards and the order stack and homogenizing your order stack and all that kind of stuff that we don't particularly need to get into.
Mhm.
But this one specifically and why like the other ones got pipped were a lot of those reasons. But also how they interact with orders given from command cards granting effects,
Yeah,
kind of cascading with all of these free upgrades. It makes it very difficult, and this is not just future proof, this is also backward, right?
Yeah.
It makes it very difficult to like effectively know the power level of a card if it's also based on what like then we have to balance the card around, are you taking the maximum allotment of these, are you doing these kind of things, are you taking the reasonable amount, like we have it adds a massive variability into the game um, for command card design and balance on top of those things. And then there's also all the other things I just talked about, right? Like
yeah.
I issue orders to all of my non-core, and then I'm essentially bypassing the entire order system, doing things like that. Um,
I,
which
I, w-
which the
I will
competitive
say,
players love, but
right. And
putting that in important places and interesting places, I think is good. And just having it being a random upgrade card that you can slap places is not as exciting or cool, in my opinion.
yeah, I think that I guess my hope would be that, for example, there's only a couple examples. It's mostly actually Cad Bane, who kind of depended to a certain extent on comms relay not giving him orders because he's sort of allergic to orders. He gets, what is it, 3 dodges? Is that really what it is?
It's
Two, yeah,
dodge.
two. Okay,
I think it's two. Yeah.
only 2 dodges for not having an order. But he does have command cards that are cool, and I think that people who wanted to bring Cad Bane back into the game a little bit more may say that now it feels a little bit tougher to do that because if you're playing his cool commands, it means that you're not giving him dodges. Uh, so
And this is all part of the assessment, right? Like,
right.
does this make Cad Bane a little worse? Yes. Is
Yeah,
that still worth it for the game, right? These are the hard decisions that happen.
yeah,
These
for
large
sure.
games, right?
We're not jealous of y'all having to make those decisions
It's
and
there's a lot
then
of
be
sweating in that
grilled on
room.
podcasts.
Like, it's a very stinky room
I,
by the end of the day.
I do think I have like a kind of like follow-up question to that that's centered around kind of like the creativity that is kind of like involved in list building, right? Like a lot of these things that were removed, specifically like battle meditation and comms relay, and esteemed leader to like some extent, but obviously with the backup change, it makes sense that that had to
Yeah,
go. That they kind of like allow players to, I don't know, flex their creative muscle and like doing weird random stuff and coming up with lists that are outside the box and norm and stuff like that.
with
Like,
the Rube Goldberg machine of unit of
yeah,
order
yeah.
generation.
Which is
Yeah.
obviously very cool and very hard to balance around. Like what is your guys' kind of mentality like approaching what is and isn't okay when it comes to that sort of thing?
So generally, this kind of goes back to the relentless, steady charge change as well, right? Like,
Yep.
I think it needs to be fairly intuitive that this works for it to be good, right? So the like to go back to before we changed Padme, right? Like giving her an order, handing off the order, using things to generate tokens with that. All that kind of stuff was removed for this reason. There were those changes because of this reason. These changes are because of these reasons. Like, can I cheat orders onto units that shouldn't normally be able to be ordered by this card to get an effect onto that unit that shouldn't normally be allowed on that unit? Things like that. We don't like because they're not intuitive, right? Are they creative? Yes, absolutely. Are they a very niche rules application? Also, yes. Removing that niche, in our opinion, is good because it allows the game to be more digestible and more understandable to a wider audience. Does that remove some creativity from list building? Yes, it does. But once again, what do we cut? What do we keep? If we are trying to streamline, that is not what we call one of the pillars of Legion, right? We kind of have these things that we believe are very, very important. So the command hand, order stacks, those kind of things, how dice pools are built. I'm not going to go too deep into this because that is another podcast.
Yeah, probably.
I think
yeah, go ahead.
To build off of that too, right? And I think you're identifying a little bit with this question. One of the core challenges or problems with the universal upgrade system, which is that universal upgrades are cool because they apply anywhere and they allow this list building creativity. But if you can put it on anything that has the slot, what happens when going back to the arcs being able to take the medic now and pushing out these other options within the thing even further or exacerbating an issue that already exists? Universal upgrades consistently are the most difficult to look at because of how they can have an outsized impact on one thing, which then depresses other things, right? Those types of things. Just to give a little bit of view into the future and the philosophy here, like one of the things now that we have this foundation and building forward is the idea of, okay, let's start reintroducing those ideas or that creativity, but clearly it has to be a more. So universal upgrades, we're still on board for existing. Obviously, like we want to see things that go across the factions. But what we have come to realize, and one of the things that you're going to start seeing as we move forward with, the new edition of the game, is that there's going to be more upgrades that are faction specific, even if they're shared across factions.
Sure.
Right? So, for example, you can say, let's give I'm going to go back to my burst of speed example that I think I used in Gray Squadron because I like it, because it's really easy for me to remember and it's wild and crazy. But let's let's just make burst of speed as a universal upgrade to any unit that has charge. Well, what did we just do?
Wookiees.
Did we? Did we? Because it's a universal upgrade, so anyone could take it.
No, you gave it to Wookiees.
We gave it to ARCs, right? Like Wookiees can take it. But your point is
that's true. It was wishful thinking on my part.
Right? Because they can both take it.
Yeah.
ARCs and Wookiees can take it, but what did we just discuss, right?
Yeah.
With the medic.
Right.
Now all of a sudden it's like, oh, well, this makes Wookiees better, but it made ARCs even better. So
yeah,
get wrecked, Wookiees. Like, we're gonna take ARCs.
God, again.
That I hopefully ideally encompasses the universal problem. So
yeah.
Now, what can we do, right? Because we want a universal upgrade. And my previous example, when I brought this up, it was talking about how to fix riot troopers, right? How to improve riot troopers. Sure. And there are lots of ways to do that. This was just the example of a future upgrade can actually improve a unit or make it viable by giving it something that's missing. So, but if we don't have a universal upgrade that can go on anybody, okay, well, then what's the solution? The easy solution is, okay, there's a new Wookiee upgrade that is this burst of speed for Wookiees. And then there's a burst of speed upgrade for whatever units we want in Empire. Maybe it's just a universal one in Empire that says any Imperial unit with charge can take this burst of speed upgrade, because we don't believe that it outsize impacts like the internal balance. So right. Yeah, you could take it on Riot Guard or Riot Control. I don't know who else you would take it on. Who knows? Maybe a character, an operative. But
pretty good on Callus, probably.
Yeah, like Callus might really love it, yeah. Right? But the point being is that in Empire, it can be more universal within Empire, right. Because it doesn't affect the internal balance. Whereas in Republic, if it's truly universal, then it's just going to make the best better, and it's going to make the things that it's really targeted to fix better, but not good enough. And and so this goes back to like your point, Mike, about creativity and list building. And I think this is something that we're excited to get to, and something that you're going to start seeing more is like, one of the challenges has always been, well, upgrades can cover deficiencies, right? I think that was the original intention of not just being able to customize your units, but also to be able to customize your units to make them fill a role that you want and maybe improve their performance for a cost increase.
Mm-hmm.
But if the best can take the same thing that makes the less best better, where are we, right? We're right to the point of we discussed with the medic with Wookiees and ARC troopers. So
we're talking about theoretically like a Republic only training or a
a Wookiee only training, like right. It could just because it could be for Wookiees for both Rebels and Republic. It could just be Wookiee warriors gain bursts of speed.
And would it be fair to say that would be a preferable way to raise up underperforming units than changing a unit card, for instance?
I think it depends. I mean, does it do enough, right?
Right.
Changing a unit card fundamentally from a rebound
takes a lot.
Right. Actually changing the whole thing, I think, is the most extreme. Pagani might disagree, but I don't think he will. Is the most extreme case of like, how do you fix something, right?
Yeah.
The step below that is change the keyword definition, right? Like I think Pagani said this last time, was just change hold the line to be something different. Yeah. Now we have
but now they know that it's on Callus, like
2 units would hold the line, right, instead of 1. But maybe it doesn't really hurt Callus. You know, you can change a keyword. You can change points, which is kind of the safest but least impactful thing you can do to some extent, right? We always talk about how cheap does old Jin have to get before she's actually considered good. Yeah. And if your kit just doesn't function, then that cost could be 0. And you're an extra free body, but it doesn't really matter.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, you can do upgrades, right? You can do upgrades or you can do new releases. And typically those can work with specific units. And I think they're very impactful. And you can combine those with points reductions, right? So like you can reduce the cost. Let's go full bore on this crazy example. You reduce the cost by Wookiees by 3 points and give them a burst of speed upgrade that's 5 points. So they're net 2 points more, but all of a sudden they're faster, right? Like, does that solve the problem?
Yes.
I'm not sure that's true. I think
like,
Mike, I'm gonna take what I can get here.
Look, you're just a Wookiee
hungry for scraps.
I don't know what
but does it, right? Or are Wookiees just, do they need a complete overhaul? I can't tell you that because those are not conversations we're having, but
no, we're not.
Are you next up? The Notorious Scoundrels.
Yeah.
The
complete overhaul confirmed.
Why Wookiees need an overhaul.
Yeah. The point being, right, is that we want to see that list creativity. We obviously love that list creativity. We made customizable officers. If we didn't like creativity and player choice, why would we do that, right? We would have just been like, you can build it any way you want, but they all function the same. And then Pagani wouldn't have heart palpitations every time they get brought up.
I would like to not do that.
Yeah, that's fair.
But I think the whole origin of the goal, right, was to give players a dramatic impact on choosing the way in which these things play. And that philosophy remains to the army, but unfortunately, it is one of those things where, and I know people are getting tired of hearing this, like, it is a future thing. It is coming. It is not here, because you have to build the foundation before you can build the house. And
I thought you were going to say co-opetitive.
So yeah, no, not co-opetitive. That's different. That's when we play the game.
Yeah, that's true. Mike, were you going to say something else?
I mean, I'm not sure how relevant it is at this point to this conversation, but I did I guess my second tagline to this question was, comms relay and battle meditation, like the creativity that they inspired. Like, I guess I had a little bit of a concern that like taking away upgrades like this kind of pushes players closer or towards just taking like the efficiency bricks of like sleeper cells and arcs and stuff like that.
Homogenization.
I mean, I don't think, like, you guys obviously didn't remove 40 upgrades, you removed 5, right? Like, so we don't need to be hyperbolic about it, but um, I guess I am a little bit concerned because these upgrades were kind of the core few that allowed you to do those kind of like wonky things that allowed you to maybe bring a list that was more than the sum of its efficiency blocks put together.
Yeah, and the point to that, right, is that I think you'll see those things return.
Okay.
Right? That's kind of my point about the siloed and the problem with universal upgrades, right? Is that those concepts didn't go away internally, right? But where Pagani can point out, you know, the outsized impact, the variables that they add, those kinds of things, not having them be universal necessarily, or having them be more targeted to the things that we want to see them on, or the factions that we want to see them in, brings back that creativity where it matters and doesn't necessarily cause problems in places where we don't want it.
For sure.
About things like forest dwellers.
Yeah.
Recon.
Right.
Yeah.
Like if you want Yoda's 2-pip to be usable on 2 units that aren't Yoda, you'll print a battle meditation specific to Yoda.
Or to Yoda.
Or just to Republic, right?
Or
like
it
depends. It depends. Yeah. But there's a lot of different ways to do it. I think the sort of departure is in that universal upgrades become less numerous or become more generic in terms of their power level, right? Like equipping somebody with a grenade is probably a fine universal thing. Doing something like aggressive tactics is probably not great, as we've learned, just because of how it can snowball in so many different places.
Yeah, I mean, aggressive tactics, I've always been on the train of like, this is an upgrade that should have 4 different points costs depending on where it lives, right? Like that's
and that's kind of the problem, right?
Yeah.
I'm not saying that we're going to make another aggressive tactics, but to prove Shick's concept, right? We could make a Republic aggressive tactics, we could make a Rebel aggressive tactics. Like we could do that. I don't think we're going to, for the record. Like, let me not give you hope there.
Yeah.
Like
we won't lose sleep over it.
We're gonna get the banners and signs and aggressive tactics.
I do like the idea, and for whatever it's worth, is the X-Wing miniatures game veterans will know that faction specific / generic upgrades were actually a very big thing in that game, especially with pilot talents, and that they actually did help sort of define what the different factions were in that game. And so I think that the concept of having those in Legion is actually something that's pretty cool. I mean, Republic's experiencing a little bit already with the squad leader thing, right? I mean, that is a faction specific upgrade that you can slap between multiple things. And so I think that has helped with creativity in Republic lists, even in the current world we're in, where we only have 1 core slot. I know that that's not going to be the current world soon, and I appreciate y'all showing that card. But it's definitely helped like mix things up, and I can only imagine like how many options there are going to be in that squad leader slot in a couple years compared to what we have now, which is like just the beginning. Okay, so I know that we're running up a little bit close. We had a couple more questions that we wanted to get to, and so these are also questions that came from some of our patrons. Given that this was probably the second biggest update compared to like the original 2.6 launch, I'm guessing that the next ones are probably going to be smaller. But by the same token, do you think that in order to like get the word out quickly and accurately next time, do you think that there may be a chance for a companion like written documents that sort of talks about your philosophy behind some of the big changes? And look, if you would rather rely on doing interviews with us, then more power to you.
We're not complaining, to be fair.
Yeah, we're not complaining, but sadly, not everybody listens to this podcast, and the community will often come together. Like they did an excellent job. Shout out to PC Gamer Pirate for putting together a Word document that everybody contributed to sort of like get all the changes together. But I'm curious whether y'all would consider sort of having an official patch notes in the future.
So yes, however, comma,
Hmm.
probably not for updates like this one,
Right.
because the patch note would just literally be the entire rulebook.
It'd be huge. More like the November update, I mean.
Um,
Like the one that we had
I
last
think when it's
November.
updates that are things like
Yeah.
these units were changed,
Right.
for sure.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
But updates that were like we rewrote the entire style guide and then rewrote the entire rulebook in the new style.
Yeah. That makes sense.
That's the note, right? Like the note is the rulebook is a different rulebook. And
We
we
did
did
it
everything
because
we
style.
could to not unintentionally change the effect of things. And so far,
Yeah.
we have done a very good job of that. So hats off to Andrew Dersom and the team on that one. Where, I mean, whenever you're changing language in a rulebook, it's very easy to accidentally change effects. Very,
Yeah.
very easy. And I don't think we're only 14 or 26 hours in since the update. But I don't think anyone has come up with
Wild,
anything
isn't
where
it?
they're like, that you borked this thing. Like it just doesn't work anymore. Except for the few typos that we did talk about.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
we
Exactly.
haven't like
The gauntlet
redone
has been thrown.
how shooting works, right? Like there hasn't been like, oh, dodge tokens just don't function anymore.
Yeah.
So that's been very exciting. And it's always kind of a scare whenever you're doing these giant language overhauls.
Fair.
Um, yeah.
Next question. So skirmish is now Recon. All hail Recon. Long live
Long live
Recon,
Recon.
etc. Is there obviously like the biggest part of this is that it is a way to use starter sets for new players, and that is just like a pre-built-in way to play the game with one single boss each, and that is great, and I think that's just like an excellent change. But obviously, it's going to exist even for players who out there who have collections. And I was curious from an organized play standpoint, do you foresee Recon being sort of like more officially supported and uplifted compared to Legacy Skirmish from an organized play standpoint, I should say?
I'm not too
Or
familiar
do you
with
think it'll be
how.
about the same?
I imagine it will probably be more supported because I know that there are specific rules for it in the league kits and the
Okay. Okay.
tournament support
Well,
kits
yeah, that's something.
for not only playing entire recon leagues, but also you can do slow grow leagues where you start at recon and you slowly build up to 1,000 points.
Oh, yeah, that's
So
right.
all
I
of that
forgot
is
about
included
that.
inside of the league kit.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay.
So whereas I'm not sure it's going to be necessarily explicitly supported, it is certainly supported as
Okay.
an option inside of all of our OP kits. So
Yeah, that totally makes sense. Another question, given everything that's changing, I'm curious whether you can share anything about the philosophy of the concept of introducing new battle forces. Do you think that most of the new battle forces in the future are going to be connected to new releases, or do you think that it's it's like equally likely that just like with the original battle forces, aside from Shadow Collective, obviously, that we're going to be making stuff out of the things we already have?
Shick, you want to take that one or you want me?
That's a
Oh, I
loaded
can do it.
question. I didn't know he was going to ask that one.
I think it's a good question.
I mean, I think the overall philosophy with battle forces, right, is that we want them to work in both directions.
Hmm.
So, for instance, if we have an idea to create, right now we have most of the components to make a Scarif battle force for Imperials, right? Because we have shore troopers, we have death troopers,
Yeah.
we have Krennic, those kinds of things. Then if there's time and reason and we have the plans to do it, we would do it. And then looking forward into the schedule, we'd say, okay, well, 5 years out, what do we expect is coming?
Hmm.
Right? What are some of the elements that we want to make sure that we're thinking of that are going to wind up getting retroactively added to this force? So there's that one, right? Where you're looking at things from both a what currently exists, what is going to go forward. there's absolutely a world in which we look at battle forces as a way to address certain deficiencies within the different factions, right? And say, okay, well, this play pattern or this play style is not as effective. So can we use a battle force to address some of that,
Yeah.
right? EXD kind of being an example, I think, of that, where it says Magna Guard and Persuaders aren't exactly living the dream. The Wookiee battle force as well with the Fluttercraft, right? Like looking at some units that maybe aren't performing super well and saying, can a battle force can you use the connective tissue of the battle force that gives you the extra rules or the special abilities or new cards to
Yeah.
pull that together and let players more accurately or more efficiently utilize those things. So there's that option. And then of course there's the Shadow Collective option, which is we release a brand new effectively sub faction and we need the connective tissue to say this is how you build it, right? And this is how it functions. And so that one might just be well, it has to go hand in hand with these new releases. And there's certainly opportunities, I think, that a new release then generates a battle force as well, right? And we're looking at that stuff too. For example, um, we mentioned what?
So for example, and Mike goes.
For example, yeah. For example, the Genosian battle force that was discussed, right? I think that one is still very much.
What was that actually discussed? Because
it was
I
brought
feel like
up.
that was
I think somebody whose nickname is Weepy Will Shick might have mentioned it at one point.
Evan keeps calling me crazy for referencing it. He's like, I don't think he actually
said it. I did actually say it because at the time,
appreciate it.
Because at the time, we did have plans for it, and we still do. But what we discovered in testing is that in order for that to really be a viable and compelling battle force, we need a couple more Genosian releases. So there's a battle force that will be generated when we get to a point to where we do a couple more Genosian like things. Because the problem really is that with only the unit and the two characters, it was like it's Genosians with battle droids, but you can already do that. Like what's really it's not really deserving in our estimation of a battle force. So I think there's all three ways that battle forces can come, and it's obviously very much within our desire and idea to continue to move forward and release more battle forces. And now that we're again in the moment of having the full new edition launched and in there and the foundation's built, we can start kind of getting back to it and start, releasing steadily new battle forces for the different factions, and they'll tie into some new releases. Sometimes they'll bring, older releases to the fore, and that's a very exciting tool that we get to play with to, just make the game to bring back, like you were talking about, that player creativity and spread out the homogenization of the game. If we do it well, then we're not going to wind up in another Blizzard Force situation where it's the only way to play a faction. It might be a very strong way to play the faction, but ideally we're balancing that against, the opportunity of being able to take everything and customize versus taking a limited list and customize those kinds of things.
I'm going to ask a question that, because you guys are still here and not telling me you need to leave. So I'm going to, and there's like some, some things that I have questions about. You guys released a Shatterpoint campaign, I think, I don't know, within the last like month or so. Really cool. Evan, don't dox yourself.
I'm good.
And I was curious because that was a print and play release. If you had talked about a Legion campaign, I think last time you were on or on one of the other interviews, can we expect that to be a print and play release if you can talk about it, or is that a kind of like actual product?
You can expect one to be print and play this year.
Okay. Cool.
Nice. What? You told me it was done, Pagani.
That doesn't mean we tell them it's done.
Drama.
To be clear, when he says it's done, it means Deb is done with it, not it's done.
Correct.
Sure. That's awesome. I just like that's like a way that I really love playing games, and I'm very excited to see Legion being able to.
It's a really common question: is like when's there going to be some campaign content? So that is very exciting.
Yeah,
a lot of the pipe.
There'll be some probably alongside or close to the release of the starters. So
cool,
yeah,
cool.
that does
So this
make
is
sense.
something that is maybe gonna be way, I don't know about way, but like it's gonna probably be before. It's not gonna be part of the November update. It would likely come before that.
No, I think we can touch on that for a moment. The November update is more for like balance changes and rule
Balance, yeah.
changes and stuff. It's not like new content.
That's fair. I think I'm maybe getting my wires crossed a little bit just because like this update time frame is like obviously coinciding with a much larger and grandiose release.
This was the big
yeah.
April update. Hopefully, future updates are all going to be less big than this.
The intention behind the developer updates, right, is that that's the moment where we present rules. If there's rules changes or updates, if there's points adjustments, if there's something else going on with like the overall balancing of the game, right? The big announcements or the big, drops, those are contained to like roadmaps or special announcements or a mini extravaganza type thing, right? The the overall developer update is just that. It's rules and game balance development, right? And then it gives us an opportunity to let players know that they should expect those adjustments kind of around that time. And then also it gives us 2 touch points throughout the year to say, hey, these are the things that we adjusted. This is why. These are the things we're watching or working on adjusting, and this is why. And hopefully that transparency just allows players to feel comfortable at the fact that even if they're struggling, right, or they're feeling like some units are not performing to their utmost, they can put those as milestones of maybe that's when the adjustment will happen. And then we can also be very transparent about these are the things that we're currently actively looking at. As Pagani mentioned, that doesn't mean it's everything, but that is really our point to say, or this is why we're not looking at it, right? That can also be a perfectly viable thing that we say, we understand that the community is concerned about this. We are aware of those concerns. However, we are not actively looking at adjustments at this time, but we will continue to watch it.
Yeah. Well, and on that note, like talking about the transparency, I do want to let you guys go because you got other appointments to get to. I want to say again how much we appreciate your time and effort and just willingness to be here. Because again, to repeat for the 1,000th time, everybody, most devs don't do this and they don't have to. I know Ross, he's a nice guy, and I'm pretty sure he's not like shadow pressuring you guys to go through with this.
Blink twice.
even though Will over here was like a little bit mean to him at the press conference and saying, these slides, this is for old news. That's right. Ross.
Look, I got to get him where I can because he has a lot of power over me somehow. He can just tell me where to go. So there's just those little rebellions that matter.
They're built on hope.
That's right. So once again, thank you. And not sure when we'll have you back, but it'll be sometime. I know there's an event is Mini Strav in July again, or were you ready to talk about that?
There's no announced date for it yet, but I imagine that Ross will be talking about it at some point.
Cool.
I would assume that by June we'll be back on to talk about the customizable commander reveals.
Oh, that's gonna be June. Okay.
I mean, if we follow the marketing kind of, I don't know for sure. I'm talking out of school here, but the pattern is typically 2 months. Yeah, I guess it would be July.
1 month for rules.
2 months for announcement, 1 month a little bit before. So maybe by end of July we might be able to sneak in some first looks.
Okay.
Maybe
we can sneak Ross some candy or something, and he'll shoot him out.
We'll work him from our side. You can work him from his side.
We're gonna go over all 40 pieces of the kit.
Maybe there'll be more. Maybe there'll be more exciting stuff that will be a surprise to people. I don't know, but luckily,
I think we've
got Ross's number, and he tells us what to do.
Right.
So
cool.
Got it.
Thanks for telling me how to manipulate you guys. But with that, I think we'll cut it there. Mike and I are going to be discussing just like a little bit at the tail end of this episode. But I hope you have a great day and appreciate your time.
Absolutely. Thanks for having us, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you for coming.
Bye, guys. Bye. All right, and we're back. So Mike and I are just going to go over very, very rapid fire style some of the other stuff. As far as the interview goes, we're just going to hope that speaks for itself. I am sure that it's going to generate conversations from us in the future. And
you can count on that.
That's right. And other people will be talking about it. It was a nice surprise to get that command card sort of semi tease slash reveal, also faction specific upgrades. I think that was a new thing that was talked about. So
he also basically said that there are multiple campaigns in the works.
Oh yeah, that's true. We had a lot of accidental scoops over here.
Yeah.
I shouldn't have said that out loud because I should have just pretended that I cleverly manipulated Will into talking about that stuff when
totally intentional.
Absolutely not what happened. But so Mike and I are going to cover most of the bits that we noticed anyway. It may not be fully comprehensive, but there will be things coming out that are comprehensive on the blog. I still have to figure out what that's going to look like because, good God, there's a lot. There's a stream, 3 interviews, all these PDFs, and so I'm going to have to figure out how to actually compartmentalize all of it. But
I think the good news is there's really not that many things. They're just
spoiler
they're
alert,
just
Mike.
Everywhere.
That's going to be the thesis part of what we're about to talk about. But to cover the quick hits, sort of going in a semi categorized order. From the rulebook perspective, I think that the main thing that we hadn't talked about yet, or isn't going to be clarified, whatever, is that self-destruct changed. It is now no longer an attack. It is rolling a black dice, rolling 1 black dice for each of your self-destruct X. So the spider droid, for instance, self-destruct 3. So you'd roll 3 black dice for each unit that's within range 1. And you take a wound for each crit or surge, and you take a suppression for each hit. You take nothing for a miss. Mike, I think self-destruct is not really a consideration anymore. What do you think?
It definitely shouldn't be a consideration as far as you taking a unit
choice.
yeah, I mean, basically, self-destruct 3 means that you're averaging less than 1 hit, or I guess it's a wound technically, right? So you're not getting a save, so that's cool. I guess you can definitely spike with it, but I think self-destruct is going to be more about giving things suppression to keep them from scoring if you're using it at all.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think it's hard to tell super early, but I think flamethrower spider stock may be down a little bit. It doesn't really affect the stock on ion spiders.
I mean,
they're not.
I'm sure that there are spider droid enjoyers out there in the present edition, but they're not really getting played that much. That's
fair.
I feel like so.
Yeah,
I don't know.
But compared to the old one was 3 surging blasts, red dice, right?
I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, so it's better against heroes and Mandos and stuff. It's probably substantially less good at white save units, but yeah, well, we'll see. It's definitely not anything I don't think that you should plan your army around either way. So moving on from that, we are going to spend some time in the next episode talking about the largely updated heroes. So I'm talking about your Callus, your Lando, and your Jin. I think that just because of the interview and then all this other stuff, those are for sure the biggest actual changes that occurred. And
Lando at the very least.
Lando especially.
Yeah.
I'm sort of tiering it to where there were 5 heroes that got changed in a somewhat significant way. There's the 2 that we're about to talk about, and then there's Jin and Callus are sort of tied to where their unit cards changed a lot and their commands didn't. And then Lando's a completely new character, so with a completely new keyword, and there's cool stuff to talk about there. But we're going to move past that for now. We will mention that there were some changes to our 2 loadout characters. Loadout is now no longer a thing, so that'll be included whenever we do a minis in memoriam. It'll be upgrade slots in memoriam for loadout next time.
Our next minis in memoriam segment is going to be rough, I think, overall.
Oh, believe me, I've already started the planning. It's I'm going to have to get catering and all this other stuff. It's going to be
it's like burying the Pope, right?
Yeah. It's not something I want to mess up, which is why I'm going to take my time with it. But so for Cassian and Iden, basically Cassian is, we'll start with him. He is keeping his weapon. It is a equip, so you have to take it. It's not like you wouldn't before because it used to not be free, right? Which is sort of crazy.
I think they might have made it. I
Well,
don't know. It's
they made it
change
free
points.
previously. Like
Yeah.
originally, it wasn't free, and then they made it free, and now it's sort of free, and you have to take it.
Yeah.
And then what were the other changes to Cassian, Mike?
Basically, Cassian, for all intents and purposes, has not really changed
Or
at
he's
all,
strictly an operative now.
with the exception that he's an operative with the field commander
Field
keywords.
commander, that's
So
right.
so he play command cards as if he was a commander.
Right.
And I assume he still has a range 2 courage bubble because that's how field commander works.
Oh, interesting.
So I
Hey,
don't.
that's thematic because, you know, if I was like fighting alongside Cassian, and seeing him murder people in cold blood and generally like spend a lot of time running away from things, like I'm a big fan of the character, but he's not exactly a speak from the podium kind of leader.
I just don't understand why he's an operative if you're going to give him the field commander. I don't know. It feels really weird to me. He
I,
obviously doesn't have covert ops. He just got infiltrate because
right. It
you know.
it simplifies the character for newer players and who knows what future plans they have for Rogue One stuff. That is certainly related. We talked about Palpatine and IRG in the interview, but I'll just briefly say that if I was Lucasfilm, and I'm projecting here, I would prefer that instead of the lizard guy and the monkey with a machine gun, even though I love him, I would prefer that the actual main characters of the movie were featured in a box alongside Cassian and Jin. And so that's sort of my running theory in terms of why Pathfinders are on ice for now. I think that they're much less on ice than uh, Emperor and IRG for whatever that's worth. I don't know what you think, Mike.
No, I think they're dead, man. I think Piston and Power are in the
I
ground.
think they are, but
I
I
think
think
it
that
is
other,
much more likely that we are
yeah,
gonna get an Andor specific unit
I,
in the near future
right. Or
that replaces this. Is it gonna be Pathfinders? I seriously doubt it.
we could get a box that's literally called Rogue One
Yeah.
because that's what the squad's call sign was. Is something to remember is that it wasn't just the name of the movie. Is that the ship that carried them to Scarif identified itself as Rogue One, and so you could do a Bad Batch style thing where all of like the six main protagonists of that movie are just like there, and that would work, right? I mean, and that would be a way to sort of capture the feel. Um, yeah, we'll probably never know why Pathfinder sort of went the route that it did, but
Yeah. The
there's only
Church
so
of
much.
Bistan, though. I'm
Yeah,
sorry,
sorry,
but your
sorry to the Church
religion
of Bistan.
is
I
now
will
ancient.
be. I want people to know that I will be maintaining the Bistan tier in the Patreon,
Mm.
in memory of our beloved monkey with the machine gun, Requiescat in Pace. That's Cassian, I believe. I apologize if we missed stuff. The last 24 hours has been insane. Aiden, I think, got like a little bit more of a substantial change. I would say she got sharpshooter. She got um, both of her weapons are just like on her card, right? So she is not going to have Aiden's sniper rifle and Aiden's repeater anymore. Like those upgrades are gone. They're just on there now, which is cool, because it always felt a little bit weird um, that Cassian could flipsy doozies, but Aiden was like, I left my other one at home. Is that it felt a little bit weird. And as a result, she actually did go up 15 points, like quote up 15 points, but that was the cost of the rifle anyway. So it's just like fully incorporated now, and now she can use either one, which is cool. There,
So I do want to just back that up a little
sure,
bit,
sure, go ahead.
because it's actually like a pretty significant nerf to her weapon profile.
Oh, I didn't think
Um,
about this. I knew about her command card. Go ahead.
um, she no longer has the 3 white die pierce gun, which means that there is a much lower ceiling on her Pierce pool because of marksman, or rather because she doesn't have access to that gun, and marksman made that gun actually like pretty usable to be like, this is three Pierce one. Now her Pierce pool is capped at two.
Hmm. Yeah, that's fair. How
How
how big of
relevant
a
that
difference
is?
is that though?
Well, I
I
would
guess
say
that's
that
my question.
say that at least the most recent iterations of competitive played item didn't include her with a weapon upgrade attached. It
Mm,
was just the three white die.
okay.
So and that was like back, Luke
Yeah.
playing Iden. Look, I don't think it's like a huge deal,
Yeah,
but I
it's not a
do
mega
think
thing, but
I
it's
do
worth
think
noting. You're right.
the overall kit to Iden is basically the same cost, and she has been nerfed between this and Tax Strike getting nerfed.
It is, yeah, and so with that one, it is now Iden and two special forces instead of Iden and three
Three.
special forces. And then
Yeah.
did they also change it to only orders from this card to get rid of the Krennic Death Trooper thing?
No, I think that this has always been only orders from this card. I most of the
No, because Krennic entourage into Death Troopers got you tax strike out of that.
oh, I mean, I don't know. I know that they said that they had like issues with that. I think that was fine, but maybe that's why they did that. I guess I don't know.
Yeah. So another change to Iden is that, or to something connected to her rather, is that the ID10 now has a free action observe one. So sort of like a cute tiny buff to the little droid that is sometimes taken. But I did just want to like go back and verify. It actually does still work with getting extra face up order tokens.
Yeah.
So
I,
if you have like so you can actually still get the original Iden and three people tax strike if you have one Death Trooper and Krennic in there for whatever that's worth.
what I think is really funny about the item card change is that the biggest buff to her card was actually like immediately retroactively like didn't matter because the biggest buff is that she got a command slot.
Oh yeah, God, I didn't even
Uh,
notice that. But the
yeah,
the value of a command slot has gone down quite a bit now that
yeah.
aggressive
Like it,
tactics is no
it
longer.
actually like basically doesn't matter that she got the only reason you wanted her to have a command slot was aggressive tactics, and now it doesn't exist.
What about
It's
what about a vigilance perma dodge Iden, just like the old Jyn Erso, man?
yeah.
You
I
don't see
mean,
the
like,
value.
you could definitely do that. I don't think that it's like.
She does still have nimble and quick thinking, by the way, for
She
whatever it's
does.
worth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I definitely think like vigilance probably is like staple to her
Hmm.
if I don't know. Taking the quick thinking action is just like so expensive, but she's got infiltrate,
It's,
so
it's basically like
maybe
taking an
it's
aim
fine.
action these days, and
Yeah,
we know
yeah,
all about that.
yeah.
Okay, so yeah, moving on from her, minor updates to a couple of Empire commands. Vader's might now can only drop within half range of him. Veers' 2-pip bonus keyword is now nimble instead of agile. So a minor downgrade and a minor upgrade. I think we can just like move right past those. For Republic, uh, let's start by just like mentioning the marksman.
Sure,
Uh,
sure.
right now, it is a Courage 2 short trooper, as you said before we started recording this segment.
Yeah. It is a Courage 2 short trooper that can share the dodge tokens it starts with, which is
That's true.
not nothing. Uh, and it definitely will have a easier time getting the long shot aims than short troopers do
Yes,
because it's
it can borrow
very
them.
like one arc trooper is like, here, three marksmen, here's your long shot aims, right?
Yeah. And
um
and depending on how much they cost, there may, even though like the loss of reliable compared to infantry feels like it hits very hard, and also speed one definitely hits very hard. There may still be a place for them, maybe as a onesie twosie, if
I
the
mean,
arc meta that were the re-arc meta
yeah, I think
takes over.
the issue that I have here
Yeah.
is that I actually outside of some like very like wombo combo-y sorts of stuff, I don't think this is a spammable unit of aggressive tactics isn't a thing. Like you can't this is not a core unit you can take in multiples of if you do not have access to aggressive
Let
tactics.
let's see how much it costs. That's
But
all I can say.
sure,
We'll
sure.
see how much it costs.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
Uh,
sure, yeah. If it's 30 points, yeah, well you
and to be clear, that was a unit card shown on their stream. It is not legal for play, even if you get all eight of your DC 15 models. But that's going to be an actual release that I believe comes out in August. So at least have a taste of what it is. Padme seems to have lost her gun. The Padme apologists out there who are really like shouting from the rooftops about how she's actually good right now. We're taking that sometimes, so that sucks. But I don't know. I don't think it's actually a huge deal at the end of the day. I
I
think it
don't
more.
believe those people exist, Ed. I'm sorry.
Mike, yeah, you hear that, everybody? Mike is denying your existence. He is othering you to the greatest extent that one possibly can, but I am
Yeah.
not, for the record. Bigger things, air support now not clone trooper only or clone commander only. Um, and that means that Anakin can be air supporting Wookiee Chieftain. Both of them actually. Hey, so slight buff to Wookiees. You can take two Wookiee Chieftains now. Woo! It's 30 points more than. I just want to say for the record, it is 30 points more than Callus for a Wookiee Chieftain. Everybody.
Yeah,
Uh,
I
but anyway, putting my Wookiee gripes aside, like we're gonna have the rest of eternity for me to do those. But um,
can we actually I do want to slide back to Callus.
okay,
I
yeah,
know that we're not talking
we're
about
not
him. I don't
sure.
want to talk about his kit. I want
Yeah,
to talk about it's 75? 75? Is it 75 points?
he's 70 points.
70 points. What is going on? Like I just
That is a really good 70 points,
it is
y'all.
I'm having a
That's a
very hard
ridiculously good
time
70
grappling
points.
with them being like, here's Callus at 70 points. Also, we're not gonna change any points costs anywhere else. I'm struggling with this.
Well, okay, yeah. Hold that thought because we're going to talk about again the thesis statement is coming up
Yep.
right at the end. We're almost there. So anyway, air support, more people can do it. That's cool.
Mhm.
An interesting thing also is that every clone pilot except for I think except for Fox and Hound and Grizzer, which are still stuck in their little lats, as far as I'm aware, anyway. Or did they already take Fox away? I can never tell with these
I don't
things.
think Fox is a thing.
Okay, yeah, I think they took him away.
I don't even
They may
remember
have.
what he did.
His name was Fox. Wait, he still exists. He still exists, but he is lat only. And for the record, he is free action. Choose a friendly trooper at range 2. They get one surge token and may remove one suppression token. But he's an lat, so being that we're the notorious scoundrels and we're beholden to hashtag the meta, we're just going to toss that right out the window and make a few people mad. Hound and
I don't know.
Grizzer.
I've been building a lot of lat lists
Hey, and
lately.
there could be something there. Whatever is there is probably not going to have Hound and Grizzer in it. I can tell you, which
I
which
this
makes me
needs to
sad.
be a free action. I don't it
Damn it!
just
Absolutely.
like I don't know why it's not. Like it is like maybe it needs to be like observed 2 free action, maybe 4 is too much, but this needs to be a free action. I don't
Hey
know.
Wills. Hey Wills. I know you just talked to us, so maybe you're not listening because you don't want to like hear your voices. But if you're ever out there listening, I want to play a Legion squad with a dog in it. So let's make it happen.
Yeah.
The important stuff, though, is that the veteran clone pilots and the clone shock trooper pilot, as a reminder, veteran clone pilot allows for old school token sharing at range 1, unlimited token sharing for one attack at range 1. You do have to tap it for that.
So bad.
And then more importantly, I would say the clone shock trooper pilot, I should say, is now instead of being lat only, which I think it was before, is now Republic heavy only, which means that I think it could already have gone actually on the Saber tank if I remember right, but maybe more relevantly, it can go on an ISP. Uh, the vehicle that has gained some notoriety for reasons known to pretty much everybody at this point recently. Um, as a reminder that after it makes an attack action, the word action is important. You can choose one allied unit, any unit within range one of this unit, and then they get a surge token. Action is important because you do not get three surges from a beam attack. That is three attacks, but it is one action. But it's still pretty good. Don't you think so? 4 points. 4 points.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to be the bearer of surge token efficiency news, but 4 points for 5 free surge tokens over the course of the game seems pretty good.
Yeah, it seems pretty good.
So I think with the resurgence of ISPs and
Hmm.
yeah, this is going to be everywhere.
And, there probably aren't many scenarios where it matters, but it is cool that it can hand it off to even a non-clone trooper. Jedi don't really need surges much anymore on defense, but at least at range. But hey, maybe it'll matter sometimes. Okay, so moving on from that, CIS, remarkably very little change generally. Obviously, Super Tag Generic is out. Kalani and Kraken are still in there. And then I think that the only functional change that I'm aware of is that Preservation Protocols, which is the one that it has really awesome art now, where it's sort of like showing a super tech that's like in the middle of the hive mind and it's sending out its little electro tendrils anywhere. But I am sad that the one where it was like choke slamming Anakin or something. It was like crazy art before even, but that's the one where you get dodges and disengage and impervious, which was super awesome in the past because you could get an extra order out of it via direct and therefore get an extra unit affected by that. But it is now only orders affected by this card. So very, very, very minor buff. And even though generic super tech maybe was the most efficient before, guess what? Kalani is still very good. So I think droids are going to be just fine. In random news, two points changes that we did not talk about. I am hoping that Winter Moon will rescue us in terms of not mentioning the range trooper points change. That certainly came out of left field for us. I decided not to get into it because I thought that we were using all of our stock of being annoying when it came to the clone medic question. But range trooper went up by 10. No one understands why. It is being confirmed as a real change.
Yes, it is. It is. It is a thing.
How
Whether
how long it's a thing is anybody's guess.
yeah,
Because we don't understand the reason. They certainly were not blown up
screw
enough.
you, Range Trooper fanatics.
Yeah,
Get wrecked.
I'm gonna make a prediction that I don't know. If there is one unit cost that is most likely to change before November, I bet it's range troopers. For whatever that's worth. And then in other sort of random news, Din Djarin's flamethrower went from 8 to 5.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
this is firmly in the bark gunner category from November, as far as the points changes that sort of like puzzled us the most. It's not like this is bad or yeah,
Actually, very
finally.
good.
I mean, it's very good. I mean, it's not like Din was struggling, right? I guess 5 is a more even number than 8, and that's the most that I can say about it. And then one more thing. All Mandalorians that didn't already have melee blasters get them. So that is Sabine. That is the Super Commandos. That is the Rebel Mando Resistance. That is Rook Cast. It's the Mando, I believe, Gunslinger on the Super Commandos. So uh, to go along with the arc model of if you're doing pistols akimbo, then you can do pistols in your face. Is that now everybody has that now? So that I would say that for most of those units and upgrades, I would say cool. They got a little bit better and they were already decent. Um, Sabine, I feel like jury's out. That's maybe a conversation for another time. Mike, Rebel Mandos though.
Yeah, they're
They
still
did.
bad.
They also got. Wait though, Mike. They did also get a combat shield.
Still bad.
Uh, they're still bad. Hey, you'll have sleeper cell.
That's a
So
unit that really needed a points update, Evan.
yeah. So on that note, I think that let's finally get to the blue whale in the room, which is the number of things that didn't get changed. Now, the wills, they got into the reasons why in their own stream. They talked about it with GSG. They talked with us about it. They basically were of the opinion that you don't want to change too many things at once, and that the future state of things was still cloudy enough that they didn't want to proceed forward on a great many things. Obviously this is going to boil down to opinion. I think that we said our piece appropriately about, per our opinion, at the very least, some up adjustments in terms of strength from the Empire probably would have been a good thing to do, especially paired with the like some of the other hits that they took, so to speak. Um, but it wasn't just them. There's plenty of things like Rebel Mandos, Wookiees. We talked a lot about that a lot on the interview. There's many things out there, and mostly focused on potential buffs there. And then on the other side, even though Aquas are still fairly new, Sleeper's been out for a while, and I felt like they could go up by 5, don't you?
I I think the way that I feel about this
Yeah. Go
generally,
ahead, Mike.
I'm gonna
Mike for
lay it out there.
everybody.
I'm super disappointed. I'm trying to like maintain my
You're doing a great job. We
thanks.
talked about our breathing exercises before the cast,
Yeah,
and you're
yeah.
really keeping it up.
Evan's been keeping me from hyperventilating out of control the last 24 hours. Um,
It's my
I
job. I'm a doctor now.
the thing is, this is the new edition drop, right? Like this is supposed to be you guys have a new game. Everything moving forward from here is like this
Yes.
is the foundation it's built on. If there was ever a time to radically reset the points on a large number of units, it was right now. This was it. Like this was the window where you're like, this is we're resetting all these points for all these units, and this is where we're starting from, and we'll change it from here. And instead, what we have is a large volume of units that are still at the points costs from the old edition of Legion with the same unit cards and the same command cards. And I appreciate that they are trying to like take it low and slow here with like I think they clearly are being cautious, but if there was ever a time where in my opinion should have tossed caution to the wind and went for it, this was it. And I am concerned that we're never gonna get that update that all like there's what I conservatively I think that there are at least 20 units in this game that need a substantial points or unit card update that have not gotten it.
I
I,
I think 20 sounds right for a mix of substantial and minor
Yeah, I mean,
points.
I'm talking like units that need either somewhere in the realm of like 15 to 20 points knocked off their unit card, or they need like
Wookiees.
different keywords, right? Like,
Well, but that's the thing. Different keywords, like I think that everybody should be realistic. They don't want, they're not going to want to change PDFs. Like if
yes,
they,
I think the window for that is now closed,
yeah.
right? This was the window, and it's gone.
Mhm.
Um,
And so I think that a a decent amount of the disappointment that for what it's worth is like also coming from me, is that there are there's a lot of command cards and units especially. Upgrades I feel much less passionate about just generally because more of those will come out.
Yeah, other than
Uh,
aggressive tactics, they
yeah,
shot
that's
they
fair.
shot my
Yeah,
boy.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry for bringing that up again. But there are a decent number of units and a whole lot of command cards that just feel like they are legacy that they exist in a legacy space for the old version of the game where sitting around and plinking at each other for 4 turns was a thing, right? I mean,
Yeah, and I mean, I don't
and
want to
that just
like
ain't the game anymore.
I don't want to like dive into them too hard here because I think
Yeah,
that
yeah. I mean,
but
we can't. There's a lot.
but like even the units that were supposed to get like for lack of a better term, complete reworks. I'm looking at you, Jin. I'm looking
Lando
at
is the only
you.
truly complete
Yeah,
rework.
I'm looking at Jin and Callus specifically because they were like really highlighted as like these are 2 of 3 units that are getting complete rework works. It
Alice is the second most reworked, I think.
Yes, but their command cards did not change. Like,
But hang on though.
yep.
Callus's actual commands. It's true that he's lost the manipulation aspect. Although ISB investigation is still a thing, right? So like that's still a thing that he can do.
Yeah.
Uh, but and so obviously contingency is gone. But the actual stuff that his command cards do is still pretty good, right?
I don't
Um,
know. It wasn't good enough before. It wasn't
but
good
he
enough
wasn't good
without.
enough before.
I'm not sure that's true.
He,
Like I'm not sure that the his new kit, like obviously 75 points is insanely cheap. And going
70.
back to it, it's like if I would make the argument that if you made old Callus 75 points, I think you probably would have taken them too. Like I don't know
Oh
if the
yeah.
if the words on that
And by the
card
way,
are
70, Mike.
sorry, 70. I keep on saying 75 because I can't imagine that it's lower than
He's
that.
he's
Um
76 with tenacity, which is probably going to be a pretty common upgrade on him.
Sure. But like I don't think it really matters what that card, the unit card actually says
Yeah.
from like a value proposition standpoint in that I think his his command cards weren't good enough or seemed like they were not good enough to play before. I think they have similar issues to what they did before. And in the fact that Jin's command cards didn't change. I mean, look,
Her 3-pip did.
the word, no, it didn't. The word, I understand that the words on that card changed. The effect that it gives you is 99.8% of the time the same.
But the danger sense makes them beefier if they're red sage units.
Dangers, sure, okay. If you
So
if you
I
combo
know.
Jin with Mandos, maybe I does Danger Sense allow you to roll red dice now?
Danger sense, I thought is just your defense dice.
No, I thought it was
But
updated so that it's just white dice, but maybe I'm wrong about that. I mean, look, maybe there's a combo there, but her 1 pip does the same thing it used to in essence. Her 2 pip is still way not good enough in the new edition.
yeah, the 2-pip's not great.
I mean,
The
it's sort of interesting with Agile, I guess. I don't know. Uh,
danger sense lets you roll your native defense dice, by the way.
okay.
So
So it's
for Mandos and for like Luke, that could be kind of
you
hot.
still got have to find a way to get the suppression tokens without dying in the first place, right? Like if your Mandos have suppression tokens on them, they probably lost a dude or two to begin
But
with.
I think
It
the
does
new
give you a
one has an
suppression
optional
token.
one. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Sure. Yeah, I don't know. To say I'm less than enthusiastic about this. I think I know we weren't going to talk about Jin and Callus, but here we are talking about Jin and Callus. I
We're gonna
think
have more next week.
yeah, I think Jin is DOA, to be completely
Oh
frank.
man, I think, man, we gotta get Brian on to talk about Jen.
I think Brian's gonna agree. I'm gonna be
Oh,
honest.
you think he would betray his people?
I think Brian
Yeah, I mean, if you read my article, you'll know that Brian's capable of just about anything.
I think a 5 health white save unit whose whole shtick is I want to be in melee in a world where we now have 84 arc troopers with medics running around is not a a nope. Not doing it. I'm sorry. Like I don't those two things do not compute. She's gonna get one shot even if she has dodge shoguns. I'm sorry. She's bad. Like the only way
I
that unit card was ever gonna be relevant is if they changed her command cards to do different things and they didn't change. I don't know.
I think that
That's
I think it'll make a good conversation. I will just say like the only thing I'm confident about is that I had to I got out of work at exactly 6 yesterday, which and then I had to like we immediately hopped on with our patrons and they helped us like craft questions, which I really appreciate again to all of you by the way. And I think we got to ask like most of them, half of them at least. And then like straight on into this after like editing the questions we were going to ask. So there's so much I haven't even like processed yet. And that includes like taking more than a cursory look at uh especially Jin and Lando because I've looked at Cal's a little bit more because I've already heard a report from one Izzy Gambliel that he is quite good, which is not surprising given that he is again 70 points for a pretty good package. But yeah, with Jin, you may very well be right. I am not going to sit here and say, you're just the Jin hater, Mike. You always have been.
I want her to be good. I'm gonna be honest. Like I don't yeah, I don't know. Um she's
We
a finesse piece that wants to live in melee that you can't give orders to if you want it to do the thing that it's built to do.
a finesse piece in a barbaric game, you might say.
In a game ruled by things with punch you with arc trooper fists.
Yeah. And hey, the good news for us, Mike, is no matter what, every time one of these things happen is that we get stuff to talk about for weeks on end. And we're gonna have some more cool guests coming up. Evan Boris is gonna be back. So that I think that's when we're gonna probably have our shared TFT moment of silence for the Palpatine IRG especially. Uh, but yeah, we got some cool folks coming up. We're going to be talking about Jin and Callus. We're going to be talking about the new ARC Trooper meta. Um, they're
It's
like
so insane. I
they're the
don't.
cockroaches of Legion. Like extension events happen, nuclear war. They've been battered down, and yet like out of nowhere they're showing up like the Undertaker behind the meta to be like, how about 20-point medic leaders?
This is
It's just
the cheapest way to take arcs ever? Question mark, I think. Um
I don't
and
know if it was I don't know if it was cheaper than Captain and the original arcs when 2.6 first came out, but it's still pretty good.
I mean it's yeah, it's
Because
insane.
the extra model though, I don't
That's
know.
what I mean. Like,
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
I
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
know.
Ugh.
This is
Oh boy.
this is crazily pushed. I think here's my hot take. I think that this is the medic is worth more than the commander was at 22 points by a lot.
Oh, that's that.
I think it's
Hmm.
a lot better than that. On an order of magnitude.
But Mike, Inspire one. Just kidding. Ha ha ha
Um,
ha. Uh,
yeah.
yeah, I don't think that's a super hot take, Mike. I hate to disappoint you, but I haven't like done the maths.
Yeah, I don't know.
Seems pretty good.
I'm like Kenobi's standing there guarding in the arcs while the arcs heal him for
And
taking the wounds for them.
Mike, we should mention we thought between casts that emergency stems was like going to suddenly be a dead card because of a now confirmed typo on a physically released set,
Yeah.
but it actually hasn't changed per the PDFs.
Nope.
So the
So
stem medic arcs,
Stim medic arcs, the stims are basically just 6 points now because you kind of get to free roll the two. And you have medic? Yeah,
yeah.
seems like a problem.
What do you think about that Yoda list when you can only order one of them? Do you think that's dead in the water?
I
Because battle
think
meditation is gone.
I think battle
Obviously.
meditation and aggressive tactics being gone,
Ah,
like
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yoda is not 6 feet under, he's not 8 feet under, he's like 12, 20 feet underground. And this comes back to like I don't understand removing all of this stuff and not making adjustments to things that needed these upgrades to survive.
My best guess at this point is that they're being very wary about customizables because of how many friggin' like that.
At the end of the day, at the end of the day, I think you can make the argument that they're making about like, oh, we don't know what X, Y, Z, A, B, C, D, E, F is gonna do to the game, so we're gonna wait to make these changes. Like that is always gonna be true. Like that, there's no point in this game's lifetime where that is not gonna be true. I think you just gotta rip it. You gotta send it. I don't know.
I do think that my hope is that there's going to be like a maybe a slightly greater willingness to risk chaos in the name of freshness for the game in the future.
Yeah.
Like obviously you shouldn't risk such total chaos that you end up in a X-wing players will remember Triple Upsilon uh, was one of the most obscenely insane busted alpha lists ever, especially for new players didn't know how to deal with it, and they actually had to. It only took like 3 weeks for FFG to fix that when it became a thing.
Yeah.
But you don't want a situation like that where enough stuff happened that all of a sudden you have like a list that is relatively close or even worse than the 5 of first list of the starter 2.6. But I think it's fair to say that my hope would be that it is somewhere between the brave, the risks that they took with the very start of 2.6 and the risk that they took yesterday. Um, I
I
think that
think
the sweet spot is between those.
yeah, I mean uh I there's got to be a quote out there that's something about like sacrificing like quality for perfection. Like chasing perfection makes it so that you don't like actually
Well,
hit
the quote is that perfect is the enemy of good.
that. But yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And I feel like we're like waiting to make changes to hit the perfect mark
Hmm.
and not hitting the good mark because we're like trying chasing something that's unachievable.
I Yeah. Empire players I think are going to be leaning on Callus and maybe Iden.
I
And
think
of course, still Vader and Krennic.
Item's no different except she's worse. I
All right,
don't.
they're going to be leaning on Callus, Vader, and Krennic pretty hard, I think, from a competitive point of view.
Yes, I think those three characters are probably. I could see Callus essentially replacing the Krennic slot in a lot of lists. In
Could
that
be.
like you kind of get to have like the Krennic effect, but it's on a combat capable unit that
Yeah.
also allows you to bring bounty.
Hmm.
The Callus just does a lot of like side grade minutia for 75 points that is effectively
70 points.
free. He's sorry, I said, jeez.
It's
70 points.
been a long
He's
day
like
already.
he's like here you get direct in your army that's never had direct before, and here have bounty on a Q unit that's never like you've had to take a mercenary to get
I
this
mean,
effect before.
it's something that you can have a Callus Hask strict orders chain situation. Obviously, aggro attack is out the door, but strict orders for Empire players is still a thing to think about in this day and age.
Yeah, I guess strict orders is still in the game, isn't it?
It is, Mike. Yeah. Yeah, I don't think that was. I don't think that's a super disruptive upgrade. But anyway, we are going to have more talk about these new units. So we appreciate your patience that we're not going to really fully cover everything. Is there
This
anything
cast
else?
is probably bordering on 3 hours as it is. So
Yeah. We better stop. Is there anything else that you want to say before we land the plane?
I think, look, I think that there's a lot of people in the community right now that are frustrated and disappointed, and I
Yes.
think that I would like to just emphasize that um, the conversation should be tried to stay constructive, you know?
Stay constructive. Please don't be personal. I know it
Yeah,
feels obvious.
yeah.
But like the game's still here. It's gonna be here. People out there who think that AMG are abandoning the game, I'm just like gonna come out and say this. That just doesn't line up with the logic of business decisions.
They're also just
So
definitely not, right? Like
yeah, they're
they're not
not.
abandoning the
They're
game. I think we
they're showing
can,
up here and talking about it. And so
yeah, I
yeah,
think we can have conversations about like what should or shouldn't have been done till the cows come
yeah,
home,
totally. That's the job.
yeah. But it'll eventually get fixed.
And community feedback is a part of it as much as even though like you may feel powerless now, like I promise that you aren't, is your voice ends up becoming a part of the greater whole. And so I think that we are gonna try to put it on our backs a little bit in TFT to figure out ways to like help get Empire over the hump in particular. So I'm definitely gonna be like trying to think of how we can do that creatively.
Nah, they're just
Uh,
screwed, Evan. I don't know.
Don't listen to Mike. Don't listen to Mike. He started as a good therapist where he was talking about like legitimizing feelings, and then he's like, ah, it's all over. They're screwed.
Hey, it wouldn't be me if I didn't do the
Yeah,
thing,
that's
right?
fair. Let's land the
Um,
plane, Mike.
yeah. Hold up. I gotta look at what episode this is. I think it's 11. Does
Oh
that
man.
sound right to you?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, we're gonna go with 11. Well, this has been the Notorious Scoundrels, season 4, episode 11. It's been a long one. I'm Mike.
I'm Evan.
Stay fresh, cheese bags.